Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It is an overreaction Monday, and I'm sure the reactions will be very tempered as Atlanta United lost in Colorado 3-0. I'm sure the reactions will be tempered in Miami, who lost 5-1 in Austin. Cincinnati, where they have not been able to find a goal just yet. Chicago hasn't been able to find a goal just yet either, although they have 2 clean sheets to go along with it, so that's just bizarre. Francisco Calvo will not have tempered reactions with 2 late goals to bring San Jose back for a late draw against Columbus. All kinds of stuff in MLS to get into. Lewis Morgan is not tempered today at all with a hat trick in the first half as Toronto got blitzed at BMO Field. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into everything else going on worldwide and all of it. But I do want to start with what we saw Saturday night in Querétaro. I'm going to lay down a marker here to start this with really quickly. There's still a lot of information coming out. There will be a lot more information coming out. There has been a lot of conflicting reporting around this, things that were coming out. That night, we were sitting in the airport getting ready to head back to Denver. And, you forget about a bad performance really quick when you see some of the things that you saw in Querétaro. I am going to lay this down, though, very quickly and importantly. I am not going to get on board with anybody who wants to start the all Mexican fans are like this. Mexico should be kicked out of the World Cup. Mexico should be kicked out of FIFA. Mexico shouldn't have soccer and be allowed to look at a ball and all this kind of nonsense. Because I have had so many wonderful experiences in Mexico, in stadiums, dealing with Mexican fans in the U.S. and in Mexico, dealing with media, all of the different things. These were gang members, essentially. These were criminals who did this. It had nothing to do with the actual game. It had nothing to do with football. It had to do with Barra Bravas, who have obviously, because there are videos showing, at least allegedly, security allowing them into a section where they're not supposed to be to attack Atlas fans. This happens in other countries too, with Barra Bravas having too much control at clubs, and that's what has to be eradicated. This is an issue at this venue. This is an issue at this stadium. It is an issue throughout Mexico and many other countries. There's been all kinds of these conversations about Barra Bravas in Argentina, in many countries in South America. We have seen it worldwide, in Europe as well, over the years. That's what has to be eradicated from this. If anybody is going to fool themselves and think that, just kicking Mexico out of world soccer is going to fix it, no, it's not going to do it. And that's honestly going to punish so many people who we need in this game, who are great for this game. We have to figure this out as people in the sport. Are there criminal elements in a lot of it? Yes, there are. Luckily in MLS, we haven't seen that. Hopefully we never will. But in some of these situations, there have been in other countries. You also have to understand some other countries and cultures and all of that, because it's not as simple as just looking through the prism of growing up in this country and saying, oh, yeah, that's bad. You kind of do need to understand a little bit about what's going on. But there is something that we can all do across the board in this game. We have to stop the posturing. We have to stop the running our mouths on social media about trying to pick fights with other fan bases, trying to do all of this machismo, whatever nonsense that it is. Because while you have a criminal element here, I don't know if all of the people involved were, and it's easy to get caught up in it if you are thinking that's what your fans are supposed to do. I pray that this is never the mentality across the board of American soccer and soccer in MLS. It's happened in MLS, not to this degree, but go watch chairs being thrown at fans in a NYC Red Bulls pregame skirmish that people thought was great. You see this stuff. There have been incidents. I pray that we never see anything in the United States like we saw in Querétaro. I pray that we never see anything like that again anywhere. But if you want to really be a steward of the game, let's kill this attitude about everything is life and death and war and battle and all this kind of nonsense. Because, yeah, there's a part of the world right now that's actually dealing with the realities of that. We don't need to talk about it in this sport, in this game that we all love and has a lot more meaning than just being a game. I'm also not going to go down that road either, that it's not that important because it's just a game. It's obviously more than that to all of us. So let's take it seriously and let's do it right. Let's be good stewards of this. But this is not a Mexico as the whole in the game is bad. No, Liga MX has questions to answer. Querétaro has huge questions to answer as a club. The stadium, security, police, all of that have massive questions to answer. And I hope they are hauled in. I hope the talk about attempted murder charges are 100% legit, because those people need to be dealt with. And whatever happened needs to not happen again. And Liga MX needs to take those steps. But this is not a Mexico bad thing that I've seen some try to run with. No. This is, we need to take ownership of our game and get these elements out of it. That has to happen, because I never want to see anything like that again. Please don't share some of those videos. These are triggering for a lot of people. I hope we get to the bottom of it. I really do. I don't know what Liga MX is going to do in the short term. They should have canceled the evening games after this. They didn't. They did cancel the games on Sunday. You know, there's been talk about Querétaro being kicked out of the league. If the club was involved in anything that allowed this to happen, they should be. They should be, because this is not what you go to a game to enjoy with your family, by yourself. Doesn't matter. You're there to enjoy a game, a match, something that's very important to you, something that's very emotional. You shouldn't have to fear for your life running from criminals who, for some reason, have decided to take that game as an opportunity to try to hurt people. So in the game, we have to take ownership of it. We have to demand better from our supporters, from our clubs, from stadiums, from security. Luckily, in this country, that has been done pretty well. It's not perfect. You see it in all sports in this country where you have incidents. But luckily, we haven't had anything like that in a long time, that we haven't seen it in MLS. I hope we never do. But we've got to take better ownership of this game and get these types of elements, the criminal elements, gang warfare, all that kind of nonsense. We have to get it out of the game. We'll keep you up to date on what's next out of this. I mean, there's all kinds of rumors flying out of Mexico about the rest of the Clausura might be canceled. Querétaro could be removed from the Clausura, and the rest of the Clausura could continue. There's all kinds of things going right now. FIFA is going to have to intervene. CONCACAF is going to have to intervene. Liga MX is going to have to intervene. The authorities in Mexico are going to have to intervene. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff that has to happen. But it needs to. And everybody else in the world should not be throwing stones thinking that they are immune from this, because they're not. Because we've seen it to varying degrees pretty much in every country worldwide and every league. And we need to make sure that it doesn't continue. There has to be a stopping point. There has to be. So if you care about the game, if you care about it, when you're in the stands, monitor this stuff. Luckily, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you have a way to call. You have a way to get help if you need it. If you see this stuff, if you hear your friends acting this way towards visiting fans, please don't allow that to happen. This is different. This is not just fans running their mouth. This went somewhere else, and there's a lot more to it, I'm assuming. But all it takes at times is for two drunken idiots to start throwing hands because one of them got mad because somebody said something they shouldn't have. Sometimes that's all it takes. I don't want to see that kick off something in this country and in this sport at any level. It's not just an MLS thing. It's USL. It's all of it. It's all of it. High school, all of it. We have to take more ownership of this game and treat it the way that we want, because the game's given pretty much all of us who are involved in this show, listening to it, any of it, the game's given us a ton. We owe it to what we've gotten out of it to protect people, protect the people who, in this case, weren't protected in Querétaro from Atlas fans who were attacked. We deserve to treat them better and to treat the future fans who could be attacked better and make sure it doesn't happen. So That was a really sobering thing to see. Sitting in an airport after a game, frustrating, disappointing day. Looking at results around the league, looking at 74, almost 75,000 people in Charlotte. What a celebration! And you're juxtaposing that with what we saw in Querétaro about the same time, and it's something that we can't ignore, and we have to fight against at all times in the sport because there's too much of it at varying degrees, and we just got to work harder at this. I hope this is a wake up call for the world. I fear that it's not. I hope that it is, but we'll see what happens. We'll keep you up to date on everything that goes on in Mexico around this because, like I said, there's a number of bodies that have to investigate here, and there's a number of things that have to be done for the game to return in Mexico and people to feel safe. And we will see what steps are taken between now and when that happens. Hopefully, it's soon. Hopefully, the people who did this are brought to justice, and hopefully, as the reports have been this morning, 26 people injured, a few in critical condition. This is coming from official reports in Querétaro. Again, it's been disputed by folks, but the official reports have been fairly consistent since the night. I believe it was 2 in critical condition. Some have been released already, but hopefully everybody got out of that with their life, and injuries are not going to be long term, and hopefully they get the justice they deserve. So keep that in mind when we're talking about overreactions, because we get worked up about a game and we get upset about things people say. Yeah, let's put it into some context, okay? Please. Let's get into whatever you guys want to get into on an Overreaction Monday. Sorry to start the show that way, but man, that's one of the scariest things I've ever seen, because I've been in so many games and so many stadiums, and I don't think I've ever feared for my safety, really. Been around some aggressive folks who have run their mouth, but never really feared for my safety in a situation. I just can't imagine being in that situation. There's a thread that a lot of people have shared this morning of a couple who went to the game, I believe celebrating an anniversary, and went through all the details of everything they saw in their decision making and trying to stay safe. And luckily, some Querétaro fans who were fleeing from this, because all Querétaro fans are not the people who started this. Luckily, they got help and they got out, but some didn't. Some didn't get out on their own free will. So we've got to do better, and we will keep you posted on the steps that hopefully Liga MX and beyond are going to do to make it better. But we do have games to talk about, and we do have things to talk about. And just because that happened doesn't mean we can't enjoy the game and can't talk about these games and get riled up and get frustrated and all that stuff too. But yeah, sometimes we do need to keep some things in perspective. And this is a big wake-up call. Sorry to start the show with all that, but it was necessary. Jarrett, you're hanging out with us for the first hour, I'm assuming?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Let's get into this. So,
All right, let's get into it.
You did not jump onto the salty takeaway, correct?
No, that's
You
correct.
were catching up. So, your
Yeah.
opinions have not been given. I had mine on the full-time report. John interacted with folks on the salty takeaway. So, reflecting now, about a day and a half after Atlanta lost 3-0 in Colorado, what'd you think?
Um. Well, Bartimus Prime asked it right away, so let's go ahead and hit that and skip around questions. If you
Okay,
could
yeah,
pinpoint one issue with the performance on Saturday, no, because this is what I'm going to get into. What if
yeah,
you could pinpoint something with the performance? What would it be? And I guess for me, it's just it's converting chances. Like
yep.
it's such a weird game, and you had opportunities in that game to basically change the tenor of the game very, very early. You had opportunities. Is it Brooks Lennon who's getting down the right side? There's a kick save on.
Tyler
Uh,
Wolf,
Tyler Wolf. Thank you. I'm sorry. You have Tyler Wolf doing getting that opportunity early. You have
great ball from
uh,
George Campbell to send Wolf in, and it's a good
it's such a
shot from Wolf.
tough situation for Campbell to be in too. Like you asked him to do something that he's done in limited minutes, but you're asking him to do it for 60 plus minutes in a weird environment.
Yeah,
but
we'll get into
it's
the
converting.
details. We'll get into the details around that a little bit more too,
Yeah,
because
it's
that's a
converting.
part of this too.
And we've talked about this before with this team and with other teams. Is you get those opportunities early and you don't put them away, and you let a team get confidence. I believe it was the Colorado broadcast was talking about it on the TV side of, it's a team that really has had confidence issues because of the first few games.
Yep,
If Atlanta gets any of those to go in, Colorado might be in that mentality of, oh, here we go again,
yep, that's exactly
and
how I felt.
you didn't take advantage of it, and because you didn't take advantage of it, Colorado is able to go and get a goal on an individual mistake by Alan Franco, who I thought rebounded nicely. I don't know how much we want to get into that because I know people have their opinions on Alan Franco in general. I
Oh,
thought he rebounded.
oh yeah,
I
we'll
thought
absolutely get into that.
I thought he rebounded pretty nicely the rest of the game.
Hmm.
But he gets beat on an individual error. You're already thin in the midfield. Like I feel like I had to keep reminding myself like you're missing potentially six plus starters on this team right now. You're already thin, and you're not taking advantage of the opportunities you're creating, and you're especially thin in the attack because you don't have your game-changing attackers that you're expecting to have. This is something that can happen when that happens. You don't take advantage of opportunities. Colorado gets some confidence, which they haven't had since God knows when, and Colorado proceeds to go and get a couple goals. They start feeling good about themselves, and it just kind of you get a couple opportunities like Joseph with I mean, let's call it an inexplicable miss right before the half. Like
It is.
in the sense that it's more difficult than it looks, I guess. But
It,
Joseph has made difficult things look so easy for so long. We just kind of gawk in amazement when he doesn't convert them.
I I think you're being a little kind on that one. I was honestly blown away that it didn't turn into a shot. There were three key moments for me in terms of missed opportunities, and that was the story of it for me. That was absolutely the story of this match for me. Atlanta created 12 chances to Colorado's 8. Possession is what it is. That's the way the game played out. That's the way both teams probably wanted it. So, not even going to get into that. And please don't say possession is a bad thing because Atlanta had possession and a loss. Let's not do that game because that's a waste of time. 12 chances to 8 is a big one. But the Tyler Wolf opportunity that was saved, the Joseph doesn't even turn into a shot on a beautiful ball from Andrew Gutman, and the George Campbell header that was saved by Yarbrough. One thing about those three, because those three all change it. If Wolf converts, you're up 1-0. If Joseph converts, you're 1-1 going to halftime. If Campbell converts, you're 2-1 down, but I do think that Colorado would have had some problems holding on to their confidence at that point. Two of those were saved very impressively by William Yarbrough, who I thought was great in this match. One of his best performances that I've seen. He was outstanding. The Joseph miss was inexplicable is the word I would use. I think you nailed it first time, Jarrett. Like it's one that I expect at least to force a save because it was well worked, and it doesn't happen. And look, every great player has misses. Every player has things that they wish they could do over in a match. That's part of the game. So doesn't mean that Joseph can't play anymore. It means that he had a bad miss at a bad time. It doesn't turn into a shot. I mean, going next level, I thought Mateus Hosechu, he was our man of the match on radio. He had 3 pretty good opportunities. They weren't the highest percentage if you want to get into XG on it. They were all from around the top of the 18, but he had 3 shots that were goalward that were blocked. The last one was, I thought, the best one where he dribbled 2 or 3 people in the midfield to get to the top of the 18. Has a really good opportunity that I thought Yarbrough was not going to get to, but it's blocked out in front. It was one of those days in that regard, and it was frustrating. I want to get into the other thing that Jarrett said, John, because it's important because it affected everything. George Campbell playing the 6. He had to. It was either him or it was going to be Amar Sejdic because Osvaldo Alonso was unavailable. Hopefully, it is a short-term thing, but there's no way to know this. And it was incredibly unexpected. When I'm out on a road trip, I don't talk about stuff out on the road trip. This was published by a player that he was there on the way. He went. I think Joseph Martinez posted a video. They were all playing a game on a tablet, and Ozzy was there, and that changed ahead of Friday, as Gonzalo said after the match. He didn't train and he couldn't play. And that was, a little over 24 hours from the match. You had one training session, and Gonzalo talked about his, I think, thought process on this. He didn't want to be as disruptive as, he could have made a whole bunch of other moves to try to fix it. He wanted to try to keep some continuity in the team. So moved Campbell into the midfield. And I didn't think George Campbell was a problem in the midfield at all. He created that opportunity for Tyler Wolff. That was a big chance that he created, and that's something that you're looking for out of all of your midfielders. He was 84% on his passing. He was 1 of 3 on his dribbles. Duels, so. Thought Mark Anthony Kaye was really good and really disruptive, and he had a good battle with Campbell. Campbell had a couple of defensive actions. Kaye won the battle, but I didn't think Campbell was the problem. It's tough to pinpoint the problem in this. I don't think it's as simple as, again, some of the narratives out there. I don't think it's all on Alan Franco. I was a little harsh on Alan Franco on the first goal. I thought there was more space than there was. Rubio does really well with it, first off. Diego Rubio was the total man of the match. No way around it. I mean, Josetu was our man of the match for Atlanta, but Rubio was brilliant. And if Rubio plays like that, then Colorado's got their number 9 that they desperately need. But that header, so it's a cross from the left that is, in my opinion, intentionally played all the way to the right wing. We've seen Atlanta do that over the years, and it's always like, it's an overhit cross. Not always. Sometimes it's played all the way across to then do what happened on that, because what it does is it changes the point of it. So the cross from the left, Franco has the positioning on Rubio in front of him to deny him. Or sorry, he's got a little bit better positioning on Rubio in that situation. Then it goes to the right. Then it's quickly brought back. You're trying to reset and regain position. Rubio got it. Rubio used his arms. It's an arm battle between the two. Franco maybe a little slow to react to the cross to get up for it. I think as Jarrett said, as we were talking before we got started, Rubio's physicality could have kept him from getting up for it, but Rubio goes up and wins the header and puts it away. The second goal is a turnover, and it's a fluky one. Sejdic and Gutman. Sejdic with the turnover. Gutman almost rescues it. It pinballs around, falls to Rubio, and he hits a pinpoint ball to Jonathan Lewis.
That's really I feel like not just us, but I feel like in general, enough wasn't made about the fact that he dropped that in a basket. That's perfect a really good cross.
Perfect ball. Perfect finish from Lewis as well. He takes it first time.
Not to excuse any mistakes Atlanta made, but they made a turnover and Colorado capitalized on it beautifully.
It's the timing that kills you in that, because you come out of the half and you give up a goal almost immediately, and then you're chasing even harder for it. I think one of the things that Gonzalo said afterwards that I just know how people are, and I have seen it on Twitter, that going to get frustrated about Gonzalo not throwing people under the bus, and he praised their effort, their heart, their passion, the way they worked, the way they went for it. They didn't give up. They didn't. They fought. And that's all you can ask for in these situations. You give up a goal against the run of play in the first half. You give up a goal off a very quick and very well-worked goal for Colorado, but a quick turnover early in the second half. If Campbell gets that goal on the header, which Yarbrough makes a brilliant save on, then we're having a different conversation. Even go one step further. If Joseph scores on the shot that he had that Yarbrough saved, which could have been the best of his saves, and the 3 saves were all big saves, then it's still 2-1, and it's a little bit later, but you do have time to hit a team that has been wobbly. You didn't get any of those in the back of the net, and the third goal for Colorado, whatever. Last one for me really quick before we get into questions, and we'll try to bounce around that most of the show. The red on Miles, the second yellow, I think he's got to do better there and not take that yellow. He's not in a position where he has to. It's Rubio, if I remember correctly, who is at midfield going towards the sideline. There's plenty of time to recover. I think it was a little bit of frustration. It's the first red that Miles has had in MLS, so that's number one. But it was a bad decision, and it takes him out of the game against Charlotte, which you do have George Campbell who can cover there, but then you have the question of no Oswaldo Alonso. Can't really expect to have Santiago Sosa back to play 90 minutes, even if he gets his green card, because he hasn't played in preseason and he's coming off sports hernia surgery. So that yellow becomes a very bad decision that has trickle-down effects. If you want to get into a big mistake, that's the one for me because it's 2-0 at that point, and he's not in a dangerous spot. I don't think you can take that second yellow at all.
I would also give some credit to Rubio because I think Rubio sees where he is, sees where he's going, and it's a savvy move from Rubio to know he's going to be there. I'm going to step here, take the hit, and get hit, and and take that.
But Miles has got to be smarter in that regard.
Miles absolutely does. Miles has to be smarter. But I'd also give credit to Rubio for being smart and being a savvy player to recognize the situation. That's not to take away criticism of Miles.
Yeah, for sure. That one's a little different for me than like the Franco and Rubio one on the goal, where Franco makes a mistake, but Rubio really good play. Miles can't put himself in the situation that he was in on the second yellow. It's just not worth it at that point. There's no need to make the challenge in general to be there. You're 55 yards from goal, and it's 2-0 already, and you've got time to recover. Just drop off. Just drop off in that moment because you're not going to win the ball back right there in that way either because you don't have the positioning. So just look, you get caught up in the moment, you get frustrated, you want to smack the guy who has Rubio gets under your skin. Rubio's combative. Rubio knows how to use his body and draw all these things. You get a little frustrated. You just can't on the yellow.
He does, and I love him for it.
Yeah, I mean when he produces
like that,
when he produces,
when he has games like that where he's producing and getting under your skin, if he's on your team, he's probably your favorite player of the day.
100%. There's just been
at
times too many
for the counter of that.
Yes. All right. What do we got on Twitter / the chat, John? What do you want to jump into?
All right, let's start with Twitter and with Jason Nix, who definitely does fall into the hashtag of Overreaction Monday. Says, disappointing night for Atlanta United in Colorado from Bally Sports Southeast, botching the broadcast of the team.
Hold on. Slow that down. I don't know what all of the technical issues going on were. I know that in Colorado, we, and I will say we, because we were all feverishly trying to figure out solutions to resolve it. It is not all on Bally's, first off. I saw people yelling at the team, and it had nothing to do with the team in this regard. There were issues with the feed getting back. I think at first it was audio, then it was all of it. Getting back to Atlanta, getting back to the Bally studio here. So I don't know what all was going on. I don't know how it got fixed because I guess it did at halftime.
They did
the first half.
They did it in pieces where the first half was Bally video and altitude audio.
Well, no, that's different. That's not what I'm saying, John. Like that's to get the game on. Right. I'm talking about how they fixed it to get our guys on it. I don't. There shouldn't have been an issue with that, but I know they were trying to get the pregame up from Commerce City with our pregame the whole way. I think the plan was always to get altitude up just in case if you couldn't get their feet up. But they were fighting, again, feverishly to try to get this thing up. So that was a plan B to get the game on for people. But that part wasn't the issue, getting that to Bally's. The part was getting the broadcast up. So they are getting our crew up. So they had the altitude feed up till when?
Halftime. And then that was
that's when it got finished.
You had Mo and Kevin in the press box trying to recap and then introducing Jillian, and then it was Atlanta United's crew.
Okay, got it. Because, it wasn't like they couldn't figure out how to get the game from altitude on. That part wasn't the problem. It was they couldn't get the feed out from us. And I don't know what that issue was. But, we were all trying to figure out ways to help and solve it and figure out what we could do. And it was not fun. I'm glad they did get it going. I'm glad they did get them on. But that was a challenge, and that was again, I don't know the whole issue with it, but that wasn't a pleasant thing to do. But Bally's didn't do it intentionally. The team had nothing to do with it because they want the broadcast up, because a lot of people were not happy about the broadcast. It's very easy to follow not having the broadcast up. It's very easy to follow the reaction on social media. I would not want to know how many messages were sent to people and emails and all of these things. This was not intentional by any stretch.
When you have these situations, and Jared, you and I can speak to this as well. It's not like you don't have as many people for a double negative as humanly possible trying to figure out ways so the game can get on the air with your crew in some form as quickly as possible. So, I mean, this is something that they were working on, and Jason, you saw it in Commerce City. They're busting their butts to get this to where it can be the home broadcast as quickly as possible, Jared.
Everybody involved was.
You ain't lived until you've seen a network engineer lose his damn mind because something is offline when it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
I went over this with an old radio friend of mine who I used to work at iHeart with, and because he's always told me the story of he was working overnight back at Old School Project 961 RIP, the OG great that took over for 96 Rock, which was the real OG.
Yes, that is the real OG.
Well, we'll get into that sometime. Project existence and 105.3 The Buzz's existence is just because a bunch of people got to do what they wanted and made successful things happen.
Yeah, to a degree.
But basically, like, yeah, I'm oversimplifying, I know. But apparently, like, one time the station went like off the all the stations went off the air, and he described it as like engineers coming out of the walls that he'd never seen before.
Yeah, because
it takes a lot of people to get things like this going.
Yeah.
The legend himself, Miller Pope, is also always very calm. But if things got sideways, Miller's going to pull tools out that you've never seen before, probably, and they're going to do everything they can to get stuff online. It's tough. There's a lot that goes into it, and when stuff goes wrong, when stuff goes wrong, it's never one thing. So there's never like, okay, we know it's exactly that. You start troubleshooting, and you're troubleshooting 3 things at once, and planning to troubleshoot 3 more things. It's tough.
It's really tough.
I just want to make it clear to people, like, hey, it's not like the movie Airplane, where they unplug the plug and he's laughing.
Yes, it is not that. It is not everybody just standing there smiling as you try to figure it out. No, it was feverish, and it was
people
nobody
yelling and cussing and screaming and
all of these things. In the little bit of help I was trying to provide, I saw some of that, and I'm sure there was plenty more. I hated it for Kevin and Mo and Jillian and everybody with the team because they put a lot of work into getting them back out on the road for the first time since 2019 in Montreal. So, this was not anybody's desire here.
And they're the ones that unfortunately are going to bear a lot of the complaints.
Yeah, and they have absolutely nothing to do with
because
it.
Because they're the faces that and recognize from it. But they're as stressed out and frustrated as anybody because they're having to deal with it. But there's nothing they can do about it because they're not engineers. They have to be ready to go at the drop of a hat when everything does come back up. So they can't, even if they were engineers, they can't just drop everything, go start calibrating, frequencies.
They got to stay locked in. You got to stay locked in because it could pop up at any point. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible when I've had to deal with any technical difficulties on a broadcast. It's horrible. I've never dealt with anything like that to that degree, but it's awful because it's so easy to lose focus. Then the rest of the broadcast is difficult. And, credit to those 3 for making the best of the situation as soon as they could get on the air. Yeah, it sucks. Don't get me wrong, Jason Nix. Don't get me wrong. It's not good, but I just, sometimes these things do happen and you have to deal. It's frustrating, but nobody did anything intentionally. I hope that's understood. It should be, but just to be clear, this was not anybody's like, oh, yeah, I forgot to plug this in. My bad.
Yeah. And the rest from Jason from Twitter. He's been on the conversation in the Twitch pitch, but I'm going to still continue with what he had on Twitter here.
Okay. And then jump into the Twitch pitch after this.
Will do. Uninspired performance against a team that isn't that hard to figure out. Once again, we're back to defensive mistakes and missed chances. On top of that, we get Gonzo's comments after the match that remind me of Berhalter after the last Canada.
No. Jason, I got to stop that, okay? The game in Canada where Greg Berhalter said this, and I criticized him for it, he said they had control of the game in Canada. None of the numbers back that up. If you watched it, it didn't back it up. That's not what Gonzalo said. Gonzalo said, I'm going to read you the quote after explaining where things went wrong, whatever. I think this is the quote that seems to upset some people, but I'm very proud of the team, the effort, the heart, the passion. They never gave up. I think that when you said about it not being the best performance, yes, maybe on the soccer side in the final third, we weren't as good today. But I was very happy that my players never gave up. That's something for me. We will build from there, and we'll try to fix the mistakes and come ready for the next game. That's what a coach is supposed to say in that moment, because you had 12 chances to their 8. You controlled the game the way you wanted to. You got into the final third more than they did. You had more of the ball in dangerous areas than they did. You did control the game. So, and he didn't say the things Berhalter said in Canada. He just didn't throw his team under the bus because there was no reason to. Which, in game 2, when you get coaches who throw players under the bus for making a mistake, you think that's going to help the long term of the season? No, it's not. I'm sorry. I don't understand. I don't understand the desire for coaches to say bad things about their players publicly, because that doesn't work. Who is the coach that you think of the most out there who does that lately? Jose Mourinho. How long is he staying in jobs right now, by the way?
Not long.
How many players are fighting for him? Not many. It doesn't. No. Like, I'm sorry. That doesn't work. You don't throw Alan Franco, who had a good match, honestly, outside of getting beat on a cross. It's a mistake because he got beat. But he got beat on a cross. He turned the ball over a couple of times. He also passed at, what is it? 86%, 89 of 104. He wasn't this glaring, huge monster of a mistake in this match either. If we can find players who never make mistakes and convert every chance and never get beat, show them to me. I'll take them. I'll absolutely take them. But when they do, you can't have the coach come out and throw them under the bus. There was no problem with the effort in this game, in my opinion. They did fight. They give up a third goal at the end where you're gassed and you're playing with 10. Yeah. But you had multiple opportunities at 2-0 to cut it to 2-1, and I think the game's completely different. Didn't convert. Why? Yarbrough made 2 big saves. And you got to give him some credit in keeping those chances from being converted. But no, I do not think this is anything remotely like U.S. and Canada, because the U.S. was played off the park in Canada. Atlanta United was not in any way played off the park in Colorado. I'm sorry, there is no way to justify that comment. The scoreline is the scoreline. Played off the park to the point that you're just going to be throwing things in the post-game press conference? No. That was not the case in this game, and every loss can't turn into that because you got 32 more games. And that player who might have made a mistake in this one, you need him to not make a mistake against Charlotte. And if you start throwing them, trashing them, throwing them under a bus, blaming everything on a player's mistake, if you do that in game 2, either that player stops playing hard for you or that player makes more mistakes because it's in their head going forward. And you got 32 more games. You keep working. You keep working. You get everybody healthy. And you keep working. Colorado played their best game of the season by far. Easy to figure out. I mean, Jason, they played a 5-4-1. They sat back. Yeah, it's easy to figure out they're going to do that. But you still created 12 chances against that. You still created more chances than them in those moments. So, yeah, you convert a chance. I think it's a completely different game. You get one goal. I don't think that's all you get. I think everything changes. But credit to Yarbrough. And the Joseph one is the most surprising one for me. I mean, if you want to get into individual mistakes, it's Franco getting beat and Joseph not getting a shot off on the chance at the end of the half. When a keeper makes a big play, you do have to tip your hat a little bit to the keeper. And Yarbrough made 3 big saves. Big saves, in my opinion. They got better as they went on. So, look, I mean, I don't know if it just makes people feel better if the coach is angry after a game and yells and blames players or blames whatever. I don't know. Maybe it does, but that's not their job. Their job is to get results. And the best way to get those is to not throw players under the bus after game 2 on a difficult day on a horrible pitch, by the way.
I was going to ask about that.
Awful. Colorado didn't train on it all week last week because it was so bad. And, I mean, Atlanta dealt with it. Like, you completed your passes at a decent bit, but I think it was Gutman afterwards who had a really good point. Like, it slows you down because you have to take an extra touch to settle. You have to deal with it. You're going to have the ball pop away from you at times. So, I mean, they dealt with it. They didn't have a huge number of turnovers, but did it affect the way that Atlanta wanted to play more than it affected the way Colorado wanted to play? Yeah. Because Colorado was going to play long. They were in a 5-4-1. They sat back deep. They played long. They looked for opportunities that way. They didn't try to build out of the back. They didn't try to build through the midfield. Atlanta does. So it's going to affect them a little bit more. Again, both teams played on it. I know that's the game. But when you have a game plan coming in and you have a way that you play that you're building for 34 games and you play on a pitch like that, it's tough to just say, all right, now we're going to bomb it forward to Joseph and he's going to have to win aerial duels against Abubakar, Trusty, and Wilson. I don't like those odds either. Maybe win some second balls, but I don't like the odds of that. So Atlanta created 12 chances. They needed goals out of it. They didn't get them. I guess should probably relegate them to the USL Championship because they lost in game 2 badly. I don't know what else to say. It's a game where you didn't get the chances converted and you got beat a couple of times. That's what happens against a good team like Colorado because they showed they're better than we thought they were. They showed that they can play this kind of way, and they showed that they can be difficult at home, where they were very good last year. They rebounded in a big way. By far their best performance of the year. Not even close.
I think I'd have more questions about Colorado if things...
Oh, for sure.
I have as many questions about Colorado as I do anything, just because that team that laid a gargantuan egg in CONCACAF Champions League. Like, okay, I said this last week. Hey, don't be part of someone's history.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be the other team in that game where someone says 40 years from now, hey, remember that time we took a team from Comunicaciones up to Colorado in the snow, played down a man for over 60 minutes, and somehow came out with a win? Don't be on that end to someone else's history, and they were. Then they got blitzed on the road against an LAFC team. We'll get to the rest of MLS later at another time and place. But then you come home and you had a gut check. This is the kind of gut check situation for Colorado that we've described for Atlanta before. And not just teams, but individual players of, hey, here's your gut check moment. Show me what you're made of. And they got good performances where they needed them, got a little bit of luck that went their way, and got 3 points and can build off that for Colorado. Good news for you if you're Atlanta, you don't have to see them again. You don't have to go out there and play on that pitch or go up to altitude. You don't have to deal with them for a while. I'm still upset we don't get to play San Jose in the regular season. I can't believe we get to play Colorado. Someone pointed this out. Atlanta has played Club America more frequently than they had played Colorado since the last time they'd seen each other. Like, the unbalanced schedule is wild.
Yeah, it's weird. The weather ended up not really being much of an issue. It was cold. I mean, it was very cold, but it wasn't unbearable. The wind wasn't unbearable. We didn't get any of the precipitation we were worried about, so that was kind of lucky. Altitude's altitude. It is an issue. It is harder for teams to go into Colorado. You look at their all-time home record, it shows it. You look at their home record last year, shows it. I think they did not lose. They lost their opener at home last year, and they didn't lose the rest of the way at home. Now you had another one to it. So, look, they're a tough team at home. You don't convert your chances, or their goalkeeper makes big saves on you, and this is what happens. You got to keep going. You don't roll over and turtle and say, "Oh, okay, we're going to cry up against the corner flag for the rest of the day because their keeper's having a good day." You keep going. And they did. I mean, you had the Wolf chance very early. You had the Joseph chance at the end of the first half. The Campbell save was off a set piece after it was 2-0. And then the Martinez save, the Joseph save from Yarborough, was later than that. I think in the 70s, if I remember correctly. So they kept going and trying to get something out of this. Kept working at it, but you didn't get a goal out of it.
All right, heading to the Twitch pitch. Tafka asks a question. Is Atlanta's roster availability one of the worst you've ever seen? I can't recall worse.
It's It's different. I mean, the worst that I will always think of is Toronto in 2018 in the first half, maybe longer, where they just didn't have any center backs. I mean, Michael Bradley playing as a center back isn't crazy. You're playing outside backs at center back with your holding midfielder playing center back, and then everything starts to domino down from there because you're taking a holding midfielder out. So then you're putting somebody else in there. That's a problem. You're taking an outside back out. You're putting somebody else there. That's a problem. That's the one because it was all in the same group. What's difficult about what Atlanta's dealing with right now is, you were already a little shorthanded up top because of the visa with Almada, which there's nothing that anybody can do. Please, I hope there's no narrative out there about, oh, they messed something up. No, that's just what it is right now. Moreno being injured in preseason and working his way back to fitness, and then the Araujo injury. I mean, that's the one. If you have Araujo, we're having different conversations about the way the attack will go. And then to add to it, you have the Osvaldo Alonso situation, which is completely unexpected. After you're already dealing with Sosa with a offseason surgery, with Heineman coming back from midseason surgery last year, with Ibarra, who got hurt in preseason and getting his green card. I'm not sure if he would be able to play if he was here. I'm not sure where he is on injury recovery. I think he might be all right. Maybe not 90 minutes fit right now. He wouldn't have played the 6 in that role. I don't think. I think he's a 6 or a double pivot in that situation. If he's the holding midfielder, I don't think he's a 6 by himself. Not the way that Atlanta plays. He could have been in the formation helping Campbell, but he wouldn't have been there in place of Campbell. And again, I don't think Campbell was the problem. I don't think there's anything about George Campbell playing here that was a failure. I think it was the solution, and it was probably the right one, because I think otherwise it would have been Sejdic playing there, and I think Campbell's a better defender, knowing they're going to be direct. You want his size in there. I don't think it's better if it's Ibarra versus Campbell in that situation because of the way you conceded the goals. Campbell has nothing to do with the first one or the second one, and he's off the field when you get to the third one, because then you're really going for it. And you kept going for it. You kept making attack-minded subs. I mean, they kept pushing everything forward that they could and getting whatever they had that could be anything resembling attacking on the field and trying to make something happen. So you fall down 2-0, which you'd expect. But it's frustrating. I think more than anything, Tafka, it's frustrating because you just haven't been able to build the chemistry that you want to, because that stuff takes time and you want everybody on the field together. But I don't know who in the league is 100% at the moment either. I think a lot of teams are dealing with a lot of issues. This is just a lot of different issues in different parts of the field.
Question on the table. Michael Ruiz, resubmit your question because it was lost in the timeline in the scroll. So resubmit it. Because I can't go back all the way to the beginning. I want to go back to the beginning of the timeline, and it cuts me off.
Don't go back to get the more current ones. People can re-ask if they need to. Sorry, we're getting into stuff and we can't give 2-second answers and do that. So keep asking questions if we don't get it, but no, don't go all the way back to stuff that we probably already talked about.
Well, no, I was finding independent things and then lose it in the scroll.
Tell them to resubmit, but pick a new one for pick a new one for Jarrett, please, because he's got to go.
Okay, so then Jarrett, who would you rather have as your center ref, Joe Dickerson or Ted Uncle? Discuss, because of they were so inconsistent. They're both so inconsistent.
Okay.
Oh man, yeah, probably. Honestly, as much as he annoys me, it's probably Ted Uncle, because at least generally I know what I'm gonna get with him. And then every ref's gonna have bad performances. So whichever one you pick is, because of Occam's razor, you would pick the simplest one, which is the one you can predict because of Murphy's law. Whichever one you pick is going to have a bad day and make you feel like you made a bad choice. They're human and they're going to make mistakes. And I do have issues with some of them in the way they've called things. Chris Pinto, for instance, seems to have fixed some of his issue with the quick trigger and being too sensitive with his cards. He seems to have been better about that last few times I've seen him out there. Baldomero Toledo is still basically my nemesis when it comes to Major League refs. I don't know. There's parts about, if we're going into, if you're trying to start a conversation about the officiating Saturday,
I don't think
There are
that
things that I didn't
affected
love at
anything
times, but
for sure.
it didn't impact the game specifically. The cards were right cards. You have thrown like one? Could you have thrown one or two more or one or two less in different directions? Sure, but it didn't cost you the game or
Oh,
anything.
would you have given the second
You are
yellow to Trusty in the 55th on the Lennon no call? That would have been his second yellow.
Well, you didn't call the foul, so no. Could it have been a
that was
foul? Yeah, but not
wild
a
though.
yellow. Not a yellow.
Yeah, the fact that it wasn't called a foul was hilarious. But
Yeah, I would not give a yellow there. I mean, I think we do have to look at, okay, if it was a borderline call according to the crew, which I thought it was a foul. I did not think it was a
oh
yellow
yeah,
card. I did not think like that's a foul and a yellow and he should be something. No, I didn't get to that at all. I thought it was a foul. I thought it should have been a free kick.
I love
And
that I can always think about Colorado and just think about like what's a random player from 3 years ago that I can't remember anymore. Oh, he's probably in Colorado. Austin Trusty fits that bill.
yeah,
I mean, for this one, for my answer to the question, I'd say Ted Uncle every single day. I think Ted Uncle at times gets a bad rap. I do not really like the way that Joseph Dickerson calls the game. He calls a lot of fouls. One of the highest overall marks in his career of regular referees in the league. That's not a style that I enjoy. If I have to pick Jair Marufo or Joseph Dickerson, Marufo doesn't call a lot. He lets a lot of play go. Dickerson calls a lot. I'll take Marufo every time. If that's the decision, the style that I'm picking from, I'm going to go with fewer whistles every single time.
Yeah.
Dickerson, I didn't think he was inconsistent really, but what his style brings into play is because he calls so much, you start to expect any physical contact to be a call. And that's why I don't like that style. He called 32 fouls here. He called 44 the week before Galaxy and NYC.
oh wow.
He threw 8 yellows here, 4 apiece. That's on the high side. I think he threw 5 because he gave 1 to Pineda, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Bench got one in the 80th.
Yeah, it's not on the sheet here. So he wasn't the problem, but I don't like his style of refereeing. No, I don't. I wish that was not what we had from a regular referee in this league. I don't. I'd rather have somebody who calls less and uses their cards a little more intelligently to control a game. When you call so many fouls, at times you kind of get boxed in and have to start throwing yellows. But I honestly, outside of maybe Mark Anthony Kaye picking up a yellow in the first half for some fouls, maybe one didn't get called that would have added to it. Okay, I thought he was getting away with a lot of physicality at times. The Lennon one I thought was a foul. I didn't think it was an additional yellow. The Robinson first yellow was a little quick on dissent. I don't know what he said. Maybe he said something magical that got him a yellow. That part I don't know, so I can't really say too much about it. The second yellow was correct. The yellow for Hernandez was correct. The yellow for Dwyer was correct. So I really can't say much about Dickerson in terms of his performance here outside of missing the call with Lennon. I'm sure there were others that we could argue was a call or not a call, but I just don't prefer that way of calling a game because you're on a choppy field to begin with, and you call a bunch of fouls, it's even choppier in terms of the rhythm. Jared, anything for you before we go?
Man, no, honestly, as far as Atlanta goes, you're missing a bunch of people. You go on the road in a weird environment, and you lost the game with individual mistakes against a team that had to do a gut check. It happens. Happens to you could be worse. You could be looking as weird and listless as Seattle does right now because,
Yeah,
buddy, you know what they're doing though, Jason? We've been over this before. We've been over this since we started this show. They're setting up the zombie sounders.
They always
They
do.
are setting up the sound. You can't be the zombie sounders if you don't die an inglorious death at the beginning of the season.
I am going to assume that is not the game plan, Jarrett, but they have shown an ability to get out tailspins.
They can't. They have, and I will not doubt Brian Schmetzer on how he does this. The start of the season has been really fun. We're 2 weeks in. Jimmy Sura has been on his bike twice.
Mhm.
Austin has 10 goals in 2 games, which is an MLS record.
The second one from Jimmy Chitara is not really a bike. It's just an amazing goal.
I'm going to call it a bike because it makes me feel happy.
I mean, it's like a unicycle, maybe?
A tricycle?
Are you just throwing out random wheels?
Well, if it's not
I said it's not a bike. I'm taking a wheel away from it because it's not a full bike. You're trying to add a wheel, John. That would be like doing a backflip and doing a bike.
Well, I was trying to think of like stages for bicycles.
Please call it a unicycle. Okay, we'll agree on unicycle and just call it there. But
I'm going unicycle.
He has had 2 of the goal of the year candidates so far. Austin has 10 goals in 2 games. The only defeated teams in the East are Red Bulls, who, hey, guess what? Toronto still can't defend. Only someone had predicted that.
Crazy, I know.
And I know, right? And then DC, who just, man, whatever.
They haven't conceded a goal either. They are 4 goals to the good and none conceded. And
you can thank Bill Hamid for that the other day.
Bill Hamid was brilliant.
Bill Hamid, like, go look at his SOFA score. It was like 8-9.
He is on Bill the SOFA score team of the week.
Yes. One. Yeah, he was on one. And my final thing as I leave you is I said last Friday, we will never be able to predict when San Jose does something. They are completely an unpredictable and chaotic team. And the mistake will be at any given week assuming they are normal, because the second you start settling into, okay, they're going to follow the script, they're going to do what they did. And by God, you can talk about the Atlanta loss. It's not a great one. Columbus dropping 2 points in that game is the worst result of the week for me, because you dropped 2 points in a game where you had a man advantage and a 2-goal lead against a broken San Jose team.
Francisco Calvo doesn't think it's broken, Jared.
Francisco Calvo has had opinions since 2017, and I
respect
disagree
that
with
man.
many of them.
Respect that man. Respect Jan Gregers too, because he helped.
I do like Jan Gregers a lot. I thought that was a good pickup.
Yeah, those 2 pickups are actually pretty good. I mean, it's probably not everything Matias Almeida was looking for, but they paid off in this one. You got a point. It was wild. Typical San Jose. Thanks, Jared.
They are what they are.
Yes,
you're welcome. Y'all take care.
See ya. Bye. John, tell us about our good friends at Lemonize.
I can certainly do that. A Lemonize service, proud sponsors of everything soccer down here. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Only one place you need to go, and it is a Lemonize service, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use a Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent those facilities that much faster. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue. Different than our favorite masking agents, because that's what they do. They just mask the odor. They don't attack the problem all the way down to the molecule. And that's what Lemonize does. It is a proven scientific formula that does so. 2 ways that you can catch up with a Lemonize with pricing. It's either by cubic feet or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, go to their website, lemonize.com, but do us a favor. Go /Atlanta after the .com so they know what part of the world that you are reaching out to them from, to end a sentence in a preposition. ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. It's a Lemonize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Excellent, eh?
Got it in under 220. That's the goal.
It's one read. I hope you get it in under 220. If you don't, that's a problem. I'd probably just cut you off.
Yes.
All right, what do we got? What's next?
Bart is asking if there should be any concern about Miles getting all of the yellows that he has been getting recently. Seems to be more than in the past.
No, I mean, again, I don't know what he said in terms of the dissent one. Let me make sure that both places had that as dissent. I know SofaScore did, but sometimes things get out of whack. Yeah, Opta did too. So, I mean, again, if he said something magical, there are certain things that you just can't say. If he said one of those, then yeah, he deserved the yellow. It felt a little quick, but sometimes when it's quick, that's because something very specific was said. I'd rather not have that yellow picked up. And I already said about the second one. I just think it was a bad decision because he didn't need to put himself in that spot. It hurts you for this upcoming week. In terms of, is it something to worry about with him as a player? No, because it's a pretty short-term trend. I'd like for him to get a little bit more of a mean streak, to be honest, a little nastier at times. These yellows weren't really that. So in general, no, but let's defer that until later and see if this trend continues. I just want a better decision making on the second one. Everybody can say stuff when they get frustrated or they don't like a call or whatever and pick up a yellow because they pop off a little too fast. But the second one was a bad decision, I think, to be in that situation. So that's the one that I have more concern about.
Four Card wants to know if there's anyone with the 2s that could come up and help play the 6.
Nope. I mean, Efrain Morales would be the one, but he has very little professional experience, and that would be asking a lot from him. George Campbell was fine. I don't think that's a problem. I honestly really don't think that's a problem. Long term, you would expect, one, he'd be able to really prepare. I mean, look, we have this conversation about the way a team trains all the time. You get the news Friday morning, I believe, is what Gonzalo said. Let me make sure that is accurate. He said the club made a statement on Ozzy. It's just that the cardiologist came up with this conclusion that we need to do more tests on Ozzy. That happened yesterday early in the morning. So this was after the game. So that would be Friday morning. You had training Friday, and your training before a game is not a full, intense 100% training session because you're playing the next day. So you're working through it. I mean, you're like, okay, this is how we're going to solve the problem. And he explained, he didn't want to make a whole bunch of changes. He wanted to keep some continuity in the team. Moving Campbell into a role that he'd played before was the one. I think it's the right call as opposed to SDH. I think Campbell is probably the better situation in this game where you expect Colorado to be pretty direct than SDH in that role. You'd rather have SDH a little bit further up the field. Amar didn't have as good of a game in this one as he did in the first game. That happens, but I think playing as the 6, he would have struggled more. I don't think Campbell was the problem. And you get a whole week now, if that's the way you want to go, against a very different team. Now, that's the other thing here is, and this is what I try to get into, and I hope this sinks in. You don't prepare for Kansas City the same way you prepare for Colorado on the road, the same way you prepare for Charlotte. Those are 3 very different games. So your lineup decisions are different. Your tactics for the game are different. Kansas City wants the ball. They ended up getting more possession than I think Gonzalo Pineda was happy with. But that's the way they play. They did good in that area. You didn't let them really create much danger with it. Colorado does not try to get possession, so you're going to have the ball. You have to create opportunities. You didn't convert on them. And they created really good opportunities with the ones that they created. Charlotte has not scored. They want to play. You look at where their possession is, it is generally deep. It is generally very slow building, but they do want possession. They've not been as active in terms of pressing or counter pressing as I think Ramirez would want. I think some of that is because their possession has been so slow to build up. And that's something they're going to have to correct over time. They're also not a very strong team at the moment, and they have a bunch of players who are learning how to play in this way, so that's expected. But you're looking at a different decision here. Do you need Campbell there as much, or in a game where I would expect Atlanta will control possession. I don't think Charlotte will be able to do that against Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz. So do you want maybe, and this is honestly a little bit of a debate, do you want a more technical player in SDH as the 6 because you expect to have more of the possession here? Or do you want Campbell, who's very good in possession there, who's more of a physical presence? That's the decision that I'm sure they were already thinking after the match ended. I'm sure that they are considering today, and I'm sure they'll be able to work on all week. So it's a different set of circumstances to decide. There's nobody with the 2s that you would bring up to play that role over Campbell or SDH. No, Morales would be the only one that's a twos contracted player, and he's not ready for that yet. He's got to play games at the USL level to get to that point. He's had a bunch of injuries. He's looked good in preseason. I think he's looked very good. I've been really pleased with him, but you just want to get him playing 90 minutes at the USL level first.
And along that line, Uncle No Pockets was wondering if we're anticipating getting anyone back this week, or will we get a bit more of what we saw on Sunday?
I mean, I think you'll get more of Moreno because he'll build fitness. So that's a bonus. Can he get you a start is really the one that I'm looking for, because that changes a lot of things. The visa and green card issues, there's no way to expect anything with it, honestly. I mean, I'm not going to blow smoke and say like, oh yeah, I'm hopeful that they'll get it this week, or I'm expecting I have no idea. You have to deal with the U.S. Embassy in Argentina on that one, because I have no clue. You're not going to get Heinemann back. And Osvaldo, again, that's another one that I have no clue, because this is not a normal kind of injury. You're not going to get Araujo back. Mulraney would be a question. I don't know where he is in terms of recovery. I would not expect Chol back into the mix. I thought his injury was worse. I don't know what Mulraney's was. It happened in training. We saw Chol's in the friendly in Guadalajara the last day of it, and it looked worse. So visa, green card, no way to know. Ozzy, no way to know. Mulraney would be the biggest question, but I think the biggest effect would be Moreno, because I don't think Mulraney would be 90 minutes fit for this week after not playing. Moreno would be the biggest potential add to be able to start him if he can get into the second half. That's the one I'm crossing my fingers on. That's the one that I am hopeful of, and I do think he'll be able to give you more. What did he play in this one? He came on a little bit earlier than I thought he might, to be honest. I thought he might not have a lot of time in him. He came on in the 63rd. No, so it was about where I thought. I thought he could go about 30. If he can go from 15 with 5 minutes of stoppage to about 30 to 45, then yeah, I'd love to see him start. With 5 subs, if he can get you to 45, I'd love to see him start. If you're confident he can play 45, that's the way I would love to see that work out. And if he's on the wing, look, we know he's going to tuck inside. Don't worry about that. If you move pieces around, if you decide, all right, if it's Campbell and Josechu and Sejdic, maybe Moreno's on the wing. If you want to play Moreno on the left, maybe you pull Sejdic and you bring Wolf inside, as he was subbed into as this game went on, where he moved inside into a kind of 8 role. He's a smart player. He can do that. And I know Pineda trusts him in those moments. I think the other wild card is you also saw Caleb Wiley come on in the 64th minute. They were just after the 63rd, so 64th minute for both. Wiley, to me, has been the one that has changed the depth chart the most since the start of preseason. I did not see him as a factor this year. He's already come off the bench twice. He's got a goal. Didn't get him in behind as much as I would have liked in this one. He had one good dribbling run, kind of cross paths with Dwyer. They didn't get on the same page. But does Caleb Wiley get a start on the wing because of his pace? That wouldn't shock me. That wouldn't shock me. If Moreno's not 45 to 60 fit, that wouldn't shock me to use his pace, because he's good enough on the ball to play in that role. It might help pin Jalen Lindsey back as their right wing back, because Charlotte's played a line of 3/5 consistently, which isn't Miguel Angel Ramirez's normal stance, but I think he's had to, based off what he's had. 3 center backs with Fuchs as a left center back, Mora and Lindsey as the wing backs. I'd like to keep Jalen Lindsey pinned. And if Wiley's pace, the threat of it, could do that, that could open up spaces elsewhere. So that might be the wild card here in terms of a tactic against Charlotte. But Moreno's the one that I'd like to see get fit enough to start. That's the one that I think is the most likely.
Mortal Man, well, actually, let me go to Burned. Along the lines with Ozzy Alonso. If Alonso's absence turns into something extended. Bernd was wondering if there's anyone out there in MLS that's a veteran not getting playing time that could be thought about possibly.
I'm sure there is. Don't think my roster book is 100% updated, but it would be updated for this kind of a conversation. A veteran that would be possibly available. Felipe Martins would not fit into that because he just went to Austin. I mean, if you can convince him, sure. I don't think Medunjanin in Cincinnati is the fit for the way you want to play. I mean, he's good on the ball. I would worry about his pace in that role. I think your press would change dramatically, so I wouldn't go there. Felipe and Austin would fit better. He's not as good as Alonso in that role, but closer. A player that we saw in Colorado that I would not hate in that role is Colin Warner, potentially a veteran. Played a bunch in this league. Solid. Perry Kitchen in Columbus. I don't know how 100% he is after battling injuries last year. Not getting anybody from DC. Nobody in Houston, I would expect, unless you could convince them to give you Darwin Seren with Herrera coming in. I think Seren is the surplus there, but Herrera is not there yet, so they might not be able to really do that. That's actually the one out of just going through it that jumps out to me the most. Let's take a look really quick at Houston. Sorry, Dynamo, you kind of fly under the radar at times. I've not been watching you up close this season. How are they playing the midfield at the moment? He did play in game 1 as part of a midfield trio with Vera and Memo Rodriguez. Game 2, he played as a midfield trio again. So, yeah, you're probably not going to get him. I'd like to get him, though. Kansas City doesn't have anybody for you. LA doesn't have anybody for you. Neither LA has anybody for you. You're not going to get somebody like Janela, and he's not a veteran anyway. Miami, I don't think they would do business with you because you're going to see them fairly soon.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you really want anybody out of their holding midfield. You're not going to get Mo Adams back, for example. I don't know Victor Ulloa's situation. He was not in the team last week or this weekend. He was not in the team on opening day, so I'm assuming there's an issue there. That's not good. This is the problem. This is what's hard when you're 2 down in this and you're looking to see if there's anybody else you can go get. Let's look at the Loons really quick and see what they have, because they have a few different holding midfielders, but how have they played it? Over the weekend, they played Trapp and Dotson together. So could you get Ja'Cory Hayes? He was not in the team on the weekend. Was he in the team in game 1? Didn't start. Not in the game day roster. So question, ding, ding, ding. You got to worry about that. I like Ja'Cory Hayes actually a lot. You're not going to get anybody from Montreal. I mean, you're not going to get Samuel Piet. You're not going to get Ahmed Hamdi, I wouldn't think. You're not going to get Wanyama. I wouldn't mind getting Hamdi if you could. Could you get Tabrai Nanunga from Nashville? Possibly, now that they added Sean Davis. He's not the same profile. He's much more of a disruptor. He's a little bit more of the Franco Ibarra profile than the Ozzy Alonso, Santiago Sosa, even though they do it different ways, profile where they're quality on the ball, in possession. You can play through them. Anunga hasn't really shown that. I don't know if he's what you need, even if he could possibly be available. Okay, we're going to continue this down the road. Bernd, I always like when you make me think like this, and we got to dig into rosters and look at it. New England play 4 in the midfield. He's not a veteran of the league. He came off the bench on the weekend. Did he play in game 1? came off the bench in game 1. There's 2 guys there in New England that both came off the bench in game 1. One of them did not in game 2. Maciel, who came through, Brazilian, who came through New England Revolution 2. I think he's a very good player. I think he could fit. The one that would be very interesting, and I'd need to study him a little bit more to see, but I like his background, is Wilfried Kaptoum. He is a kind of a classically developed La Liga possession kind of midfielder, which would fit with what you need. I would need to see more. He had injuries, and that's why he ended up coming to New England and not staying in Europe. How fit is he? He came off the bench in game 1, didn't play in game 2. I don't think either one of those guys are going to get a ton of time. Could you get one? Maybe. That would actually be interesting. They're not the veterans, though, that you ask for. Red Bulls don't have a veteran you could get. I don't think they have a surplus guy. NYC is not going to give you somebody like Morales or Zelalem, Alfredo Morales. You're never getting Maxi Morales. Forget that. He's on a holding midfielder anyway. You're not going to get any of Orlando's guys. You're not going to get any of Philadelphia's guys, and they don't have a veteran for you anyway. You're not going to get anybody from Portland, I wouldn't expect, unless you wanted to possibly get Fochive, who played an MLS Cup, if I remember correctly, as a starter. You've added David Ayala there, so I think that bumps Fochive down the pecking order. I'd have to dig a little bit deeper to get a better full fit on him. We can look really quick at a couple of statistical points to see if he would be a fit for you. 25 games last year, 12 starts. Passing was 82%. I'd need to really dig to make sure he could be a guy who is on the ball a lot more than he would have been in Portland. Pretty active defensively. So, yeah, actually, he would be an interesting one. He would be a potentially interesting one. Did he play last night?
Yeah, he did after the second yellow to Bravo, and he came in as a sub.
Came on in the 61st for Paredes. Didn't play in week 1. So, yeah, not a huge veteran in the league, but not a bad fit. Not a bad fit. Maybe that's the one I'm leaning to the most out of the guys who I think are realistic. Nobody from RSL. San Jose, I mean, you're not going to get Remedi back. I don't think he fits the way that you want to play again. I think Remedi's more of the Franco Ibarra type, the more of the disruptor. You need somebody who can be a little bit of a fulcrum in possession in that role. If you get what Ozzy gives you, which is both, that's a huge bonus. He plays the role differently than Sosa, but he's a 91% passer over the last 4 years. He's great on the ball as well as being the bulldog that he is in the middle of the park. Seattle doesn't have any veterans for you. They've got some kids who are interesting, but I don't know if you could get a deal done. Although, if anybody could, it would be Senor Pineda and somebody that he would know very well, that he would know if they would fit into the system. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to get any of these guys, but like an Atencio, Aleva, one of those guys, I just don't think Seattle's giving them up. Toronto barely has anybody to play, let alone trade, and Vancouver does not have a veteran for you that would fit because you're not going to get somebody like Russell Tybert, and I don't know if he's the right guy anyway. So, yeah, I think you might be looking at somebody like Fochive as a potential option there if we want to play that game. But fingers crossed that you don't have to play that game, and fingers crossed that this is a precaution and solely a precaution on Osvaldo Alonso. It's a precaution you have to take. It's something that you can't mess with, and he's got to get checked out and make sure everything's good. But hopefully it is, and hopefully we see Ozzy back in that midfield as soon as he can be.
Wagner GTAU asks if what are the options for center back if Campbell plays the 6 on Sunday outside of Franco and DeJohn?
Bryce Washington would be the other one. I think it would be DeJohn. He played a good bit in preseason, and he's somebody that Pineda trusts. Not as prolific, maybe is the word I would use in terms of being on the ball as much. stepping into the midfield a little bit more. That's not his role. I think with what we've seen from Charlotte and now with Robinson out, my guess is what you're going to work on this week is SDH or Hosechu as the deep lying midfielder and Campbell as a center back with Franco. That is my guess because of the Robinson red card, not because Campbell didn't play well as the 6. I keep wanting to bang that drum because I don't think that was the issue here. Campbell goes back to center back. You're going to be on the ball a lot. You're not going to be dealing with direct play into that part of the field a lot where you want Campbell's size to win a bunch of headers, stuff like that. So Hosechu has played it. Remember last year he played it. We talked about that. I can't remember the game off the top of my head. He had to play there and he had to sit, and he talked about it going into it about, hey, I know the role. I understand the role. If I sit today and play and just facilitate, that's my role. That's my game. So he's got a little bit of experience there. SDH probably has more experience. I'm good with either one because I think both of them can kind of do it. Maybe it's a little bit of a double pivot and they trade off doing it. And that's where you'd love to have Moreno back into the team. That's where you'd really love to have Moreno be able to come back into the midfield. And if that's the midfield with Hosechu and SDH and Moreno playing as a 10, okay, that would be a really good way to solve the issue for this one. But you got to get Moreno and give you at least 45. You got to at least be able to do that for 45 minutes and get something out of it. So that's my gut feeling. It's Monday. We'll see.
Aunt Martha, resend your question about the first couple of months of the season. It was lost in the scroll. Mortal Man is asking, didn't see the match, but didn't hear Joseph's name mentioned a lot. Was Joseph a non-factor against Colorado?
I mean, he wasn't a non-factor in the sense that he had a huge opportunity at the end of the first half that he has to do better on. And he had a good opportunity in the second half that forced a big save. So 2 big opportunities. I'd love if he had 10. 2 for a forward, not horrible. In terms of touches for him, he was at 28 on the day, a little low. 16 out of 19 on his passes. 6 passes in the final third. I don't have touches in the final third handy. XG, because he didn't get the shot off on the best one, which would have been a high XG. 0.03, because the shot that he did force a save on was from distance, but it forced a save because I think that's in otherwise. Did he have anything else? I think that's it. Not as involved as you'd like, but not completely uninvolved either. And look, you got to give Colorado some credit here because of the way they defended him. I thought they doubled him a lot. I thought with 3 center backs, they were able to do that a lot. I thought Brooks Lennon stayed outside too much at times, but that's his game. I get it. But in this game with 3 center backs, and especially with Lucas Estevez liking to get forward down the left from Colorado, you could have had your right winger tuck in a little bit more. That might have taken a little bit of the pressure off of Joseph and forced the center backs to deal with it more. Wolf played very central to try to draw some attention from those center backs. I don't think Lennon did enough, but again, based off what you have available, he's the guy who gets the start. His profile is not that. His profile as a winger, where he's played a good bit in his career, is wide, putting in crosses. That's what he does. So he didn't play to a different type in this one. You really needed somebody to a different type. Even Araujo, who likes to play from a wide position, but he comes in on the dribble. That would have opened things up. You needed a little bit more of that. And Hernandez wasn't able to get forward a ton because Estevez was very good and forced him to stay back. So that side of the pitch, I think I said late last week, if Atlanta wins the flanks, they'll win the game. They didn't. They did not. Estevez was very good on the left for Colorado against Atlanta's right. I think disrupted it a good bit. The other side was probably a bit of a wash with Gutman, who created a really good chance for Joseph, but it isn't converted. And Wolf coming in, and he had a very good chance himself off a ball from Campbell that was saved. So you could even give Atlanta a little bit of the advantage from their left against Colorado's right, not much. The other side, Colorado controlled that side of the pitch. So you didn't control the flanks enough, and you didn't get enough attacking numbers in centrally to draw center backs away from Joseph. So that was the biggest issue with that for me.
One more on Twitter, and there's one more on Twitch currently, but it has to do with Toronto FC instead of United.
I'm sure there will be more. Keep going. If we miss it, we'll try to get to it before we finish.
Keep going. So Shiva asks on Twitter, do we know why Alan Franco wasn't played a lot in preseason? He wasn't sharp. I think the team will be okay. Everyone needs to step up and produce next weekend.
Well, there's a couple incorrect things there, Shiva. He did not play against Celaya in preseason because he had a false positive COVID test. We talked about that. He was supposed to play in that one. He did not. That's why DeJohn went 90 and looked like he was going to pass out afterwards. That was very early to go 90. He did not play with the first group against Birmingham or in the last games in Guadalajara because he wasn't going to play the opener, and they wanted to build the continuity with Campbell and Robinson. So that was a decision, but it's not like Franco wasn't working. He played one game with the twos when he didn't play a whole lot in I think it was in Birmingham. I think he played with the twos before that, if I remember correctly. So he got minutes in preseason, but he wasn't going to be able to play the first one. You had to get Robinson and Campbell together because they had never played as a pair together. They had played as part of a 3-man, but they'd never played as a pair together. So you needed to get them minutes. That was prepping for that. But the only game that he didn't play in preseason that was a surprise, you didn't have a choice. He tested positive against Celaya, and it was a false positive, and then he was able to rejoin.
All right, we're caught up on Twitter and caught up on Twitch.
We are not caught up on Twitch.
Well, everybody's having conversations with themselves, and then there's the ones that I've lost in conversation.
So we're not caught up, but we don't currently have a question.
We currently don't have a question on Twitch.
I'm assuming there's been more than 5 questions on Twitch.
There have been. Like I said, Michael Ruiz had one that if he's still catching up with us, resubmit it. And for one,
just keep asking on Twitch, and John will keep getting to them as we go.
And then Bart was a quick question. Did you eat anything of note in Denver?
Went to, I forget the name of it. Thomas had recommended it. Joe's Number 3, if I remember right. Diner. It's been there since the 20s. Had the pork green chili on their version of huevos benedicto. It wasn't really eggs benedict. It didn't have a hollandaise sauce. It had pork green chili instead. It was really good. The pork green chili, like, I don't mind spicy, but I have limits on how much spicy I want. This was the perfect level because it was very spicy, but it didn't overpower the flavor. So it was really good. Outside of that, nothing. Oh, sorry. We ate at Mercantile Saturday night. I had the diner for lunch on Friday, Friday. And it was Friday night that we went to Mercantile. Mercantile, highly recommended. Really, really good. They change their menu all the time. So, I mean, it might not be the same when you're in Denver next or Mile High 17. I know you're close, so you could go anytime you want. I had the Parisian gnocchi, which was a little bit different than gnocchi I'd had in the past. It was really good. Roasted Brussels sprouts were awesome. Oh, my God, they were so good. So, yes, John turns his nose up at anything green.
That is absolutely true, sir.
That's very sad. But anyway. Those were very good. Mercantile, highly recommended.
Burn back in the house asking, do you think Pineda doesn't rate McFadden, or why didn't he bring him on earlier if Lennon didn't do much?
Well, I mean, McFadden's kind of the same thing, right? A little bit. I mean, he'll get in a little bit more. McFadden played okay in preseason. I mean, better than okay. That's kind of harsh. He did enough to earn it. He doesn't rate him as much as Lennon. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You have to expect. It's not that, and again, it's not even that really Lennon didn't do much. It's that Lennon didn't do maybe what this game called for. And that's a little bit different scenario here. I mean, Lennon put in 12 crosses and some good ones. So it's not like he wasn't doing things. He created 2 chances. So, yeah, I mean, he was active. He was involved. He was doing things. he wasn't doing them centrally, where I think it might have opened up more space for Joseph. But if he's putting in crosses looking for Joseph and connects, then that's a different conversation. So it just, McFadden would have been different. McFadden wouldn't have given you the width there. McFadden would have had some defensive responsibility to deal with Lucas, who I thought was very good. I thought McFadden got the time at the end as a little bit of a reward for the work that he's put in to get to this point and the work that he's put in preseason. But I don't think he would have changed the game. I don't. You would have needed then really to take advantage of McFadden in those situations. I think you would have needed to put in crosses from the other side and try to use McFadden in the air on the backside of the play a good bit. And you'd went to Wiley, who can, Gutman can, maybe. I do think it goes back to really what you said initially, Burned. I think he should rate Lennon higher, and he does. Could McFadden have come on a little bit earlier? I guess. I don't know how much of an effect he would have had. I'm not sure, but he would have crashed more in the back post for crosses. But he's not going to play centrally like Wolf. What I'm talking about, and I'll get to Jarrett Smith back in the mix here in just a second. Jarrett talks about positional gravity with Joseph a lot. This is a game where that goes against you a little bit because he draws the defenders to him and you weren't able to get other things happening. Wolf coming inside, he's comfortable playing there, playing between the lines, playing, off of the shoulder of Joseph. Like, that's his kind of game. He's not a winger per se. He's kind of interesting. Like, I kind of wonder what his long-term position will be if he settles into something rigid. He might not. He might just be a attacker who can play a lot of different roles. There's plenty of those that had nice careers, by the way. Wolf's comfortable doing the things that would have taken some of the gravity away from Joseph. Lennon's not. McFadden's not either. McFadden would have given you more ability in the air, crashing on the back post, but not playing 1-2s, not in tight spaces between the lines and those. That's not his game either. It's not Lennon's. You didn't really have another player to give you that. Let's get Jarrett back in. What's up, Jarrett?
Just listening to you talk about positional gravity and I guess Aiden McFadden getting his run out, which good for him. He has worked his ass off and he earned it. He earned that opportunity to get out there and stretch his legs.
Yes. I'm trying to boost your audio because you're very low.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I will try to get you a little louder. Like, I have limitations.
Let's try that. Okay. I can control things on my side sometimes.
Don't.
And, not manually controlled, but like we're auto adjust.
Okay. Yeah. I got you. I changed that. I took that away. You were, nobody could hear you. That was what it was.
Aiden McFadden, though, earned this opportunity. Really excited for him. He's worked his tail off in preseason last year with the twos. I'm glad he got a chance to get that run out just to stretch his legs with the first team.
Yeah. It's a reward for the work that he's put in. Maybe a little bit earlier, but no, I think you have to rate Lennon higher there in that situation to start. You have to, and then to come in earlier. Yeah. I mean, maybe he could come on a little bit earlier. I don't know if it would have changed much because you didn't have the kind of player that you would have needed there. Mulroney maybe could have given you some of that. It would have been tough with anything else you had. So anyway, that's how it goes sometimes. What else we got?
Short of GH's comment about Toronto, we are caught up, at least as I am viewing the Twitch pitch, and we're caught up on Twitter. So
I'm going to change your terminology, John. We're never caught up on the Twitch pitch because it flies very fast, and there's always stuff going on the Twitch pitch. We're never caught up. What is GH's comment on Toronto? Because we can actually talk about whatever we want. It's our show.
Okay.
We do have that ability.
Well, because we're with Atlanta United, I was going to save the MLS stuff for when we were talking about the other matches.
We've talked about Atlanta United for over an hour. We can move on. We'll get more questions when they come.
GH is wondering if Insigne is changing his mind or rethinking Toronto FC after the weekend like Crescito has.
No, Crescito's not changing his mind either. Crescito, I think, wants to stay with Genoa until the season is over. So maybe in the summer for him. I don't think he saw anything in the Dallas game that would have caused it, because I don't think it happened just because of this game. I don't think Crescito makes them a whole lot better defensively either because he's 35. He's good, but he's not that good. Look, everybody's praised Toronto for their roster build and all of that. And I got nothing for it because their defense is horrible. And it was going to be horrible based off the bodies that they had, which isn't many. And you're playing wingers as outside backs, and you can have all the faith in the world that Shaquille Marshall-Rudy is going to be a world-class right back or wing back or whatever as has been floated out there in the media. When? I don't think that happens overnight because you say so. So Lewis Morgan destroyed Toronto in this game, and I wish I'd had the guts to trust myself and pick the Red Bulls to win. I picked a draw because I didn't have the guts to do it. I should have, because I don't trust Toronto defensively at all right now.
No, let's see. I'm trying to remember what I had, but I just and you want to bring in a 35-year-old to help, just to give Insigne a running buddy, just to make him feel comfortable. That's got. Okay, fine. I'll go ahead and be hyperbolic. That's got disaster written all over it.
You're being hyperbolic. You can make it work, but it might not be what you really need. He's not going to fix both outside back positions. Like, it's not just one. Like, that's the thing, is he could come in and say he turns into a little bit of what Christian Fuchs has in Charlotte, where he becomes a third center back. Say you want to play a 3-4-3 if you're Bob Bradley and have wing backs and make it work that way. Okay, that's going to be better. That's an improvement. There's no way to say that it's not, because I mean, Criscito as a third center back, you can protect him a little bit. You can protect his, maybe lack of legs at the stage of his career. It makes it more comfortable for Schaffelberg, Marshall-Rudy, your wingers who are playing wing back. So it's an improvement. It doesn't magically fix everything either. So I think it's hyperbolic to say it's a disaster. What they have built with their roster is the disaster, because they shouldn't be in this situation. You should have been prepared. It feels like they're not. I still don't know what Kamar Lawrence is doing and what that whole thing is, because he hasn't officially left yet. There's outside backs you can get. You want to develop Marshall-Rudy as a right back, that's fine. You don't need to do it on both sides with Schaffelberg too at the same time. That's a little absurd. So good luck to you, Toronto.
Salute. And full disclosure, on Fridays after we're done, I go and hang out with our friends over at Fired Up Network, and we have a soccer show where they want to talk about Toronto FC, and
they're based in Toronto, correct?
Yeah, and so they want to talk about Toronto FC and talk about them a lot, and then they kind of want to run questions about Atlanta United and is the sky falling and all these kinds of things, and you have to combat that every single week. But yeah, I mean, literally, that's what I have to do. But when you're talking about Toronto FC, and like I said, I will stick with this. I still think that Toronto's going to make a mad dash and win a lot of games 4-3, and they might get the 7 by the time we're talking about it. But the more
I absolutely do not think that is the case. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how Lorenzo Insigne is seen as Superman.
And with the defensive issues that they have, that they're trying to kind of wallpaper over here and try to figure out what they're going to do. Yes, my prediction, and I know that once again, this is only after 2 matches, but I'm sitting here looking at this going, okay, why did you say that? So I'm sitting here thinking about, all right.
I ask you when you said it the first time.
Right. So now it's just like, now that I have some game state that I've worked with here, I'm like, okay, so, and then you want to bring in a 35-year-old to help things out.
But again, John, it's not just about that, because yes, and we talked about this with Fuchs, and Jared, I want to get your thoughts on Toronto here in just a second. So Fuchs as a left back in this league would have been an absolute disaster. Miguel Angel Ramirez isn't stupid. He knew that. Bob Bradley's not stupid. If you can play in Toronto, Criscito, Mavinga, and Salcedo as your 3 center backs, you've improved in that area of the field because you have a veteran in Criscito. You take a little pressure off of Mavinga. You have more cover. Cool. You improve your outside backs because you turn them into wing backs, which is more comfortable. You're not defending in the same way as Marshall-Rudy and Schaffelberg have been asked to so far. You're adding another defender. So what does that do normally? It makes you a little safer, right?
Yep.
Why did Gonzalo Pineda play 3 center backs last season when he couldn't change all the tactics coming in midseason and having a bunch of midweek games? It gives you a little more security. Mm-hmm. He traded attacking balance for security in that situation. So you had Crescito. That also helps protect Michael Bradley a little bit more because then you have another player behind him. So you get better with that. Do you get good enough? If you'd got him now, would you get good enough to be in a better position after the first half? Maybe a little. Maybe. But if you get him and Insigne coming off of Serie A seasons, they're not going to be 100% coming in. Right. They're going to be tired. One of them is 35. One of them is 30. They will have good moments. But can they come in and make you go 7-3-3 or 8-2-3 or whatever you're going to have to do to get into the postseason if the first half is as bad as I think it is? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've really botched it with building this roster, and maybe it's a long-term thing and Bob will get time there, but I got some serious questions as to why they didn't do more defensively in this roster build and why they look the way they do. Jarrett, Toronto, crazy against Red Bulls. It was very, very bad.
Yeah, and I talked about this Friday. Like I was nervous about the way Red Bulls cut open San Jose like a dead fish. That they were going to cut it up in Toronto in a similar way, and man, they did the thing. And the Red Bulls are doing that kind of Austin thing right now. I think we got to keep in mind as well as that side of the coin of, hey, Austin's got 10 goals in 2 games. Austin's played Cincinnati and God, who did they beat yesterday?
Miami,
thank you. They played Cincinnati and Miami. There aren't 2 great teams. Red Bulls have beaten San Jose, which is just a weird team and a chaotic team that's not great. And then they went and beat a Toronto team that doesn't defend well. And I don't know how you adjust this if you're Bob. I mean, do you go against everything you know, and do you start treating this like your front to board style of, hey, we've got our guys getting forward in the attack. If we turn the ball over, we're going to retreat and set up a block because we don't have the horses to defend up the field without getting cut open. Like, do you adjust how you approach this, and how much does it deviate from what Bob wants to do with that team? Look, the window's still open. I mean, maybe they figure out something. Maybe they find coins in the couch cushion. Maybe they find something to improve this.
But that second,
like if you can't just run out there and keep doing this. Now, granted, as I say that, they're going to have a game or two this year where they blow someone off the field in an isolated 90-minute incident where they play in a way that you're like, oh, that's what Toronto can be, because for 90 minutes they're going to play somebody where everything goes right and everything goes wrong for someone else, because that happens in the sport, and it damn sure happens in this league. Doesn't mask the fact that, yeah, you've got issues defensively that you're going to have to fix, and whether that means you go out and make changes or you change the way you structure and you play. Bob's got questions he's got to answer, and he knows that. He's not an idiot.
The thing
how he does that remains to be seen.
The thing that I'm not a fan of with what they've done is, and I think it'll kind of be the same when Insigne comes in, although I do want to see how the team is shaped. You're asking right now Pozuelo to be a hero 90 minutes every game because, I mean, Jesus Jimenez, okay, he got a goal. Pretty good, but all right. Is he going to stay as your 9 when Insigne comes in? Is Insigne going to come off the flank? Right now on the wings, you're playing Schaffelberg as a left back. You're playing Luca Petrasso, who's a homegrown, as a left winger. You're playing Jaden Nelson as a right winger, and you're playing Shaquille Marshall-Rudy as a right back. That's a lot of youth on the flanks, and Lewis Morgan destroyed it in this game. Now, the thing about the Red Bulls, to flip it a little bit here, the San Jose game, we talked about it going into. That's a perfect kind of a matchup for the Red Bulls because they play similar ways. San Jose wants the ball, but they're very active with their press, maybe too active at times. Red Bulls don't really care about having the ball, but their press is devastating. So in a game like that, I think because of the chaos, it suits Red Bull, who I think is just the better team between the two. Against Toronto, with their youth, absolutely a game for the Red Bulls. And I mean, the numbers back it up. 2.63 XG when you got 4 goals. Possession, you only had 32.6 if you're the Red Bulls. That's about where they want to be. Passes in the final third, they had 111 to 166. That's where you go from possession like 67.4% for Toronto to 32.6. But when you look at passes in the final third, it's 166 to 111. There's a gap, but it's not quite as big of a gap. The Red Bulls also just dominated from a 32 tackles to 21 side of things. They won 19 of those. Even the ones you don't win are disruptive. 14 interceptions to 9. Toronto won the duels. They won the percentage of it, 54%, but they didn't win it in the right spots. Possession won in the final third. You want a number to encapsulate this Red Bulls win? Toronto won possession back in the final third 3 times. Red Bulls won it back 9 times in the final third. That's what they do. And they are better on the ball than they've been now because you've got Lewis Morgan, who's good on the ball. You've got Frankie Amaya playing really well, who's good on the ball. You've got Omer Fernandez, who gives you enough on the pressing side, who's really good on the ball. Klimala had a good game in this one as well. You've got some guys who can play a little bit. You're not going to ask them to play all the time, but when they get the ball, they're not going to look at it and ask why it's not oblong. They're actually going to know what to do with it. That's a step in the right direction. So Red Bulls are a team to watch, but yes, they have had 2 favorable matchups in the first part of the season.
Yeah, Burns says that he says, hear me out. Chirundolo will have LAFC playing better soccer than Bob Bradley ever did, as in actually playing both offense and defense.
He could. I still think that team is going to be 100% reliant on Carlos Vela. And I thought you saw it last night when he has to come out at halftime. If he's got more injury problems, they are what they are. They are better defensively. I think they have better personnel defensively than they've ever had. So that's part of the discussion. But, you know, even what they had to deal with last night, because you lose Palacios in the second half to injury. You lose Escobar to injury in the first half. That's your outside backs. You've got Hollingshead, who's a great pickup right now if you got an issue with Palacios. And Blessing can play as an outside back if he has to. But Hollingshead comes on for Escobar, and he's playing on the opposite side. You move him around, okay. But that team looks incredibly different with and without Carlos Vela. And they are it used to be the thing back in the day, and I'm sure it still gets talked about a lot with Barcelona, but especially with Argentina, the Messi dependencia. Well, LAFC is so dependent on Carlos Vela that when he's not there, it's not the same. They get the goal. Brian Rodriguez wins a 1v1 late, puts in a good ball. Mamadou Fall, center back, is up there for it. Almost mishit it. Almost offside as well. But you get the 1-1 out of it. We'll see. Chirundolo has all of the background to be a good coach, but I don't think he's done anything yet to say that he will be a better coach than Bob Bradley. I think that is maybe wishing more than anything that is actually real yet. And we'll see. He has all the potential to be a very good coach. Bob's one of the best coaches this country's ever had. I think Bob, and we've talked about it a lot with LAFC, and I have a bad feeling we might see some of this in Toronto as well. I think Bob, after the failure in England, has gotten a little too much into wanting to prove people wrong. Mm-hmm. And maybe not being as pragmatic as he needs to be based off what he's got to work with. And I don't know why that's still the case. I got it a little bit at the beginning of LAFC. Maybe he just didn't get the personnel, whatever. But now he's got control over personnel. And they've almost went even harder down the road of being all attack-minded and get as many attack-minded players on the field as you can in Toronto. Will that change? We'll just have to wait and see. But we'll see about Chirundolo. I just haven't seen anything yet to say that. I think 2 games at the MLS level. It's way too early to say that. We'll just have to see.
No, I mean, ever since Bob came back to LAFC and all that time forward, I've noticed this, and like I said, it's just a vibe that I get. This "I'll show you" kind of a thing, and he's been stubborn in who he plays. He's been stubborn in making sure that they play a lot, and rosters seeming top heavy with a lot of experienced folks in your starting 11 with maybe a couple of subs and then a lot of younger players that you would have to rely on for injuries and things like that. But I've just gotten this index finger pointing thing vibe from Bob Bradley about, okay, I'll show you about, what you're missing out on. And that's just, and to your point, yeah, I think that is there in Toronto as well. I'll show you, and I'll show you rotten kids that I'm.
There's a huge difference, John. He didn't have final say over personnel in LA. He does in Toronto.
And now with those choices, he still seems like that. It's like, all right, so now.
Well, no, but John, this is what I'm saying. Like, he might not have gotten the personnel he needed in LA. And if he didn't, and he wasn't pragmatic enough to do it, then that's on him. But he didn't, that's not on him. In Toronto, he does have the final say. So the roster's on him as well as the choices. The choices he's making now, he doesn't really have one because of what the roster is. Like, somebody's got to play outside back. He doesn't have any. He literally doesn't have, outside of Luca Petrasso, who's more of a winger anyway, he doesn't have outside backs. The roster's on him. It flips. It's a different situation because in LA, he didn't have the final say. I'm sure he had influence, but he didn't have the final say. So you give him an out there a little bit. Here, I mean, he doesn't have a choice in who he's playing as outside back because he doesn't have any outside backs, but that's on him.
Yes.
So it's two different situations. I'm worried that he's going to go even harder down the road of, I'm going to get as many attackers on the field as I can, as opposed to, I'm going to be a little more pragmatic while I build what I want. You can be attack-minded. Pep Guardiola always said he'd play 10 midfielders on the field if he could. He'd probably play 11. He'd play midfielder and goal if they could stop anything. He's getting goalkeepers who could play as midfielders. So there you go.
Ederson would play midfielder without any problem.
Yeah, that's the point. You want guys who can play, but he also focuses a ton of work defensively. You can have guys who can play and can go forward, but you've got to have some underpinnings of it, and you've got to work towards it. You can't just roll that out day one. You can't just expect Schaffelberg and Marshall Rudy to be good outside backs. You need some outside backs. Look, I mean, Charlotte, I'll give Miguel Angel Ramirez credit. He doesn't have a good roster either, and he doesn't have nearly some of the game changers that Toronto has right now. He doesn't have a Lorenzo Insigne coming. He doesn't have an Alejandro Pozuelo. He doesn't have a Jonathan Osorio. And he's had to sacrifice. Jordi Reyna is not a Ramirez kind of player, but he's got to play him. So he's got to get something out of him. I don't think Swiderski is really a Ramirez kind of number 9. He's got to play him. He's got to get something out of him. Joseph Mora, he's okay. You can't play Fuchs as a left back, so all right, you got to play line of 3, center backs. You got to play wing backs. You're going to sit deep at times, and you gotta get something out of what you have to work with while building what you're trying to get to. I think for Bob, and I would just worry about this with Toronto, is that he's so focused on trying to be this big attacking team. He's got money to spend that he's not building a balanced team. And you got to have some balance, or you got to manufacture some, but he doesn't have the players to do it. He doesn't have a Joseph Mora that maybe isn't your cup of tea, but you got to play him. He doesn't have one of those as outside back. They're all gone. So he's got to play these kids at outside back, and he's got to coach them up, but he's in charge of the roster too. So that part's on him, where in LA it wasn't. In LA, I think he needed to be a little more pragmatic at times. He wasn't. Ultimately, LA is completely dependent on Carlos Vela, and it's always going to be the case while he's on the roster. Period. Full stop. For whoever's managing it. Toronto, Bradley's got to be evaluated as a manager and as the guy building the roster and an architect here. And he's failed on the architect side so far. You cannot spin that it's a good roster build. He's got some better players than Charlotte does, but you can't spin that it's a good roster build. You don't go into a season, Jared. I can't think of any team I've ever seen in my life that goes into a season with no outside backs. None. No fullbacks. And 4 center backs. Like, Nothing. Nada. Zip. I guess you still have Kamar Lawrence on your roster, but he's gone, leaving, doesn't want to be. I don't know. Alro, you loan out. Larea, you sell. You had depth on the right side. They're all gone. Like, I can't think of a team that has come into a season with no fullbacks.
The RO one is still weird, but I think it was a situation where they thought they had somebody that could. They also thought they had somebody they could push in there and kind of push to that position. I believe it was a winger and like to slide him back.
No, it's Marshall Rudy.
But
That's what I've been saying over and over again. Like, yeah, that's wonderful. That sounds great.
I thought they had somebody else.
No,
I thought it was someone other than Rudy.
No, Marshall Rudy is the one that you listen to. Some people, he's a potential world-class wingback or outside back. Potential. He hadn't played it until this year. Liverpool played him there in some youth off-season training stuff that he did. Woo!
Ergo, yes.
I mean, whatever. But no, like you added Caden Chung from the CPL last minute. One of your other defenders you added this offseason is Lucas McNaughton from the CPL. Sorry, the CPL is not MLS. You have on this roster right now, we'll leave Kamar Lawrence off of it because I don't know what his deal is. Petrasso played as a winger last time, so we'll take him out of the back. Caden Chung is a fullback. That's the only one. That's the only natural fullback you have. Center backs. You've got Salcedo. You've got Mavinga, who didn't play this past time. O'Neal played in front of him. I like the pickup of O'Neal. That's fine. And you've got McNaughton. That's it. So you have natural defensive players, and you're playing a line of 4. Natural defensive players, you have 5. You play a line of 4. You have 5. You have one of those as a fullback. There is no way to argue that even the Alro one, that doesn't fix it. Because then, okay, you have 6. And you have 2 outside backs. And one of them is CPL who hasn't played. Like, you're still under the gun. I think Alro wasn't going to stay and whatever. But you didn't get anybody to replace him. And that's the thing that you can't justify with Bob Bradley's roster construction here. You just can't. So he's playing a bunch of kids on the flanks. They're going to get lit up by some teams. And then Pozuelo will have one of those days where he scores a couple from set pieces and he has some big moment of brilliance and gets a goal and they surprise us because they will. But anybody who can play from the flanks will light Toronto up until that changes.
And, you were talking, how many wins did you think they needed to have in the second half of the season? You said 7 or 8.
I mean, just go back to what Gonzalo Pineda did last year. That's the benchmark that I'll follow right now because Atlanta was not a playoff team and they became one. He went 7-3-3 in the final 13. That's what got them into 5th.
Yeah, looking at the schedule, that's not going to happen in the final 15 games.
I mean, whatever. But if you are as good as you thought they were going to be, and a lot of people thought they were going to be, then they will find a way because Lorenzo Insigne is I don't think Kryptonite functions in MLS, so he's Superman, and he'll magically make wingers into outside backs, and Crescito will come in and make the defense possibly somewhat respectable. But they're going to be very up and down is what it comes down to. Will Marshall Rudy potentially be a great right back? Yeah, he could be. Can Schaffelberg be a great left back? He could be. He's not right now. They'll learn. How fast is the question that I just do not know. And they're going to lose games because they have bad days at the office because they get lit up by better outside players. And the Red Bulls with Lewis Morgan, that's a prime example of one.
Katie Weaver asked, does Bob's work with the USMNT or Egypt shed any light on his approach going for Toronto?
No, it's different because I think he's changed. I really do. Bob's work with, Egypt, you have to throw to the side a little bit because of all of the situations he had to deal with there. With the U.S., was he a wildly attack-minded manager? No. Was he defensive? No. I think he wanted them to play. I think he believes in playing the game what I'd call the right way. I think he wants to play. He doesn't want to park a bus and just hope to hold out. But I think over time, it's changed. I think, if you're looking for threads, you are looking at LAFC because that's really after his change. I think his reputation unfairly took a massive hit after what Swansea did to him. And I will be very intentional in saying what Swansea did to him. I think they brought him in. I think they promised him a transfer window to get some players that he wanted to play his style, and then they didn't give him the transfer window. He was not playing for survival. You could watch that team play, and the way he set his team up to play, they were playing to build, not playing for survival. If he had come in and been told, you got to get results immediately or you're going to be gone, then I think he approaches it differently. I don't think he was told that. I think he was lied to. So I think he took a massive hit there, and he's changed because he didn't do things as recklessly, in my opinion. And I wasn't watching Stabæk every day, but he got good results there. He almost got Le Havre promoted to Ligue 1, missed out on the last day. He's a very good manager, but I do think now he's in a little bit of I'm going to prove it to you mode. And look, maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe it's just the way the hand was dealt to him in LA. Maybe it's what the ownership wanted. Maybe they wanted to be incredibly attack-minded and always focus on that. Very possible. The way the roster was constructed, I could argue that's the case because at times he didn't have enough defensive help. They have a lot more now. But then he's almost doubled down on it in a situation in Toronto where he does have control over the roster. And just to come into a season with this, look, he's got plenty of time because they're not going to run him immediately in Toronto. They've given him the keys to all the cars in the garage. But he's really taken the long route here to get them to where they need to be. And I don't think that's going to go over real well with the fan base, who is not exactly patient.
No, it's not. They're not traditionally, and it is literally week by week. It is up, down, up, down, up, down. We're doing great. We're going to do fantastic. We're going to win it all. Oh, no, the world's falling apart. So, yeah, you get those extremes out of Toronto fans as well, no question.
Sounds like some other fan bases around. That sounds pretty typical.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm saying that is because 2020 wasn't a great year for them. It was a COVID year or whatever. 2021 was a bad year for them, a very bad year for them. They did make MLS Cup in 2019, a little unexpectedly. They haven't been dominant since 2017, and they expect to be dominant after their rise to dominance. And we haven't seen that since then. So I think that's why they're impatient, which is fair. We'll see. I mean, he's got the time. It's just he's got a lot of work to do, and I just don't think he's built a good roster, and that part's on him. You could have been a little more pragmatic and signed a couple of MLS veterans as fullbacks while you're developing these kids, and maybe gotten more results in the first half that would help you in the second half. And we'll see, but I don't think Insigne fixes everything.
Couple of other questions on Twitter. One is Atlanta United based, and one is U.S. men's national team based.
Okay.
Storm Chaser Kevin has been drifting in and out of the show this morning. He wants to know if we freaked out about Weston McKennie yet.
I mean, it's not a surprise when you saw the injury and, you heard what it was. He's out for the rest of the season at Juventus. He wasn't playing in March anyway. So, I mean, I think the freak out was already done. Nothing's changed in that regard. It was said when that happened on February 22nd that he'd be out 8 to 12 weeks. So I don't know. Maybe that was forgotten. Like, nothing's changed. He's just not coming back for the rest of this season, according to Max Allegri after yesterday's press conference. He said season's over. He'll be back next season. So the issue, it's not so much just McKennie. You look at the national team as a whole. Matt Turner out with a foot injury. He hasn't played this season yet. Zach Steffen, injured, hasn't dressed in almost a month. Chris Richards hasn't played since being injured in the game at Canada. Tyler Adams hasn't played much for Leipzig lately. Had an injury in that game against Canada. He hasn't played much recently for Leipzig. Tim Weah hasn't played much at Lille. That's your problems. That's what's on top of the McKennie situation, which we knew back at the end of February. Your positives, there's a couple. Christian Pulisic, best that he's played all season at Chelsea right now. Serginho Dest, playing very, very well. Best he's played all season at Barcelona. Seems to have earned the trust of Xavi. They are playing very, very well. That helps you a ton. Those two getting forward, causing problems. Great. You're going to need them because I don't know who's in goal. I don't know how much Horvath is playing right now. I think he's playing. I'm not 100% sure of that at Nottingham Forest. I think Sean Johnson becomes a possibility. I think Sean's solid. Sean at times has some days that shock me. I don't want to see one of those in Costa Rica on the last day if it matters. You don't really have a McKinney replacement. Is it going to be Kellen Acosta? Do you play Jordi Mihailovic? It's really tough for Greg Berhalter with what he's facing with this. And I know people won't care because people do not care anything about what Greg Berhalter has to deal with any of the national team stuff. But he's really got some difficult decisions with this group. What the lineups are going to look like and what the roster is going to look like. It's not easy for Greg to pick this. So I'm freaking out more about all of that. Nothing's changed on McKinney. Nothing. He was on crutches in LA yesterday, and maybe that's it and what Allegri said, but he wasn't going to play in March no matter what.
And on Twitter, on Twitch Pitch to catch us up, she was asking if Atlanta United is too reliant on Joseph.
No, I don't. I'm not sure where that would come from. You're not going to be too reliant on Joseph this year because, and you don't have any of these three players playing 90 minutes right now. But as I said, coming into the season, and nothing's changed because we haven't seen him. Araujo is a potential double-digit goal assist guy. Moreno almost had double-digit goals last season. He's double-double for me, potentially. Almada's double-double, potentially. So I think you've built a team that is less reliant on Joseph than you've ever been. Joseph's not Superman. Nobody's Superman. Even Lionel Messi at his best, Cristiano Ronaldo when he doesn't leave because he's not picked, he's not Superman. He might tell you he is, but he's not. Neymar's not Superman. Mbappe's not Superman. None of these guys are players that you can solely rely on and not have anything else. Can they win games for you? Yes, that's a different conversation. Can Joseph win games for you, scoring goals that you wouldn't expect him to, that others you wouldn't expect to score? Yeah, he can have those days. Absolutely. Anybody can. I mean, the best do it far often than anybody else, but you can do that, but you're not solely reliant on him. I think you built a team that is less reliant on Joseph than Atlanta United's ever been. You just got to get everybody here, and you got to get everybody healthy. So right now, are you more reliant? Yeah, because you don't have Almada and Moreno 90 minutes fit and Araujo in the team. So that happens. Jarrett, I mean, we see this with any team where you're missing pieces. You turn to guys that you trust. You turn to guys who have produced in the past, and you're asking or hoping for more out of them in the short term. But the long term, this team's built to not be reliant on Joseph.
This team is built to be problematic. And the problem is right now is that you are missing a ton of guys. And not only are you missing a ton of guys, you're missing some of the guys you expected to be impact pieces off the bench who could step in. Right now, you're pushing your depth limits. And you're throwing guys out there in situations maybe you didn't necessarily want to, or you wouldn't do it if you had your choice. Tyler Wolff's been fine, but you don't expect Tyler Wolff to be playing 90 minutes every week at this point.
No, he's not.
You expect to be able to bring him in and pick his spots.
Right.
No, he's not, and it's not a slight against Wolff, or it's not a slight against any of these guys playing up there. Brooks Lennon's playing up top. Amar Sejdic, who is a depth guy. Like, these guys are depth. They're good enough to play at this level for sure, but they are not the guys who you expect to be superstars. And right now, you're playing them out there because this is how you've built your depth to be able to survive this. I mean, you even got some of your curveballs that you would like to be able to throw at people, the Machup Chols of the world, the Jake Mulraneys of the world, who are kind of a physical curveball to have to deal with. You can't throw them out there. You're limited on what you can do. And yeah, other managers know that too. Other managers can look and see who's available and who's not and say, okay, we can prepare for A, B, and C because we don't have to prepare for D, E, and F. Changes the way that Atlanta can attack things, and Gonzalo Pineda would have to get creative in the way he makes his subs and builds his lineup. And I think to your point earlier, I mean, you wanted to maintain some of the continuity, even though Ozzy Alonso is dealing with this thing, which hopefully that gets cleared up and he'll be right as rain to go. Yeah, I mean, this was a situation where your midfield right now, the three of your 4-3-3, ain't none of them the guys you expected to be starting necessarily. And then
Disagree.
2/3 of your starting
Hold
lineup.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I
Wait.
disagree, and this comes up a
Oh,
lot.
Hisetsu.
Yes, it comes up a lot. I really think the
I
numbers
know.
back it up that Mateus Osetu is expected to be a starter for
Mateus
Gonzalo Pineda.
Hisetsu was probably the best player on the field the other
He was.
day.
He was our man of the match, no question. But
Mateus
he's played.
Hisetsu made
Good.
my heart flutter with that run in like the
Yeah.
50th minute or 56th minute, I think it was.
Yeah.
Made my heart flutter. But yeah,
He has played
other
as a
guys that
starter.
you're
Yeah. Sorry.
yes.
Let me finish real fast. Hosetu has played as a starter under Gonzalo Pineda. So I think to say that none of the three central midfielders are expected to be starters there, one of them is. I do think Hosetu is expected to be a starter there.
Yeah, that's fine. So call that then. You have 1/3 of your starting midfield, 1/3 of your starting attack in place right now, and you're just weathering it out. And that sucks because you want to start the season on the front foot, and you want to be in a situation that a lot of teams do. That everybody wants to be in that situation where you get so far out in front that you can afford to have something go weird for you in the middle of the season, and you'll be okay. You don't want to have to climb the ladder. You want to be on top of the ladder, kicking everyone else down from climbing up the ladder with you, and that's a process. And
can I ask you one thing about that though? New England last year did that. Where did it get them?
Yeah, to the playoffs, and then they looked bad.
Game one.
They looked like they didn't want to. They looked like they didn't want to. They weren't ready for it.
Yeah, weird season.
I'm not saying
too. That was a factor of that one. It's not the same, but you do want to build. I disagree just a little bit. You want to build during the season. You want to be playing your best soccer at the end rather than the beginning. But I mean, go back to the Toronto conversation that we've had. Yeah, in a playoff format, you do. Go back to the Toronto situation. Like they're struggling early on because they didn't build a competent roster. Atlanta's struggling early on because they're missing pieces to a competently built roster. It's different conversation.
Y'all want to
go ahead.
I mean, you want to talk about depth, like the fact that Atlanta's building a roster that is in the situation that you went and beat Sporting Kansas City, which I still think Sporting Kansas City is going to be fine in the long term. You beat them at home, and then you lost. You've won one, you've lost one, missing 2/3 of your attack and 2/3 of your midfield that is expected to be starting. Like that's about what you would expect. If I told you before the season or before preseason, hey, it's going to be Joseph and Mateus Pisetu, who not everyone is sold on. I know. I trust me. I know. I see Twitter. I see people getting mad about Pisetu, but those are the only two guys who are quote unquote starters that are going to be playing for you consistently because Luis Araujo is going to blow his hamstring in game one. You're going to win one. You're going to lose one. Would you take it? I feel like a lot of people would say yes.
Yeah, you won your home game, you lost on the road. Like a lot of teams lose in Colorado, and you're expected to win your home games. Let's see what you do in these next two home games where you get Charlotte.
Everyone lost in Colorado last year.
I think everybody but one. I mean, it's just it's part of the. It's just difficult. Going on the road is difficult. Going to Colorado has some extra difficulties, and look, you lose. And if you get any of those chances that we've talked about over and over again today, you get the Wolf chance that Yarbrough saves. If you get the Joseph chance that he doesn't put a shot on goal, if you get the Campbell header, if you get the Joseph chance, the Yarbrough 3 saves were huge. You get any of those, I think it's a different game. You didn't, it's not a different game. You lose 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess my thing is like I'm fine with everybody being frustrated about it Saturday. Yeah, it was frustrating to watch. I saw it unfolding and was like watching it on delay after putting the gremlin to bed, and knowing what was coming. Like, oh god, this is not going to be enjoyable. like watching the last like 25 minutes. There, in the sense of knowing that, man, this is going to be giving up
that's
another goal and seeing a
right.
red card, and it was frustrating. It's
But that's a
frustrating because you
different
know
watch.
you've already seen. Yeah, it's a different watch. I'm talking about it from my perspective, watching
Yeah.
it on a delay.
Yeah,
It's
that's
frustrating because
completely
you
different.
know what's coming.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, in the moment, like watching the first half, like, okay, y'all created some opportunities here. You didn't bury chances. You gave a emotionally fragile team some confidence, and then they did really good things. Good on you, Colorado. Let's see what you can do after this. Try not to catch the plague. Um,
Yeah, don't do that.
but I guess aside from all of it, it is one disappointing road game. And if you start seeing it game after game, yeah, absolutely. Be worried about it. I'm just not worried about it after one game. That necessarily when you're missing guys left and right. I am annoyed that you will not have Miles Robinson for this game against Charlotte because I would hope there is going to be this feeling of we need to make sure Charlotte doesn't get their first goal in Mercedes-Benz because it would be very funny to keep making them suffer. Because I don't know if y'all saw this. Everyone got it. First of all, it's really exciting that Charlotte put 74,000 in the stadium in the South. Like, this is amazing. I love everything about the fact that the Southeast is going to be just as annoying and obnoxious as the Pacific Northwest was in the last decade. By
Except
all
nobody
means,
will think
continue to
that.
do so.
Except nobody will think that the Southeast invented the game like they do about the Pacific Northwest. But carry forward.
Well, Seattle did invent the game.
That's what I heard.
Thank you very much, sir. But my favorite thing about this is everyone was excited, and then I don't know if y'all saw this. Charlotte, did you see the shot numbers in the first half of that game?
Yep.
The Charlotte game?
Yep.
16.
Yep. 15-1.
16-1.
16-1. I'm sorry. And then at the end of the game, Holden's talking during the game. At the end of it, they got to throw everything forward. I'm like, what? What are they going to throw forward?
No, they don't
Like,
have. That's
the
difference
rocks?
between. That's the difference
They
between
don't have anything
Ramirez
to
and
throw forward
Bradley.
right now.
They have to be careful because they don't have enough. So they have to be careful in the way that they approach it. They're not trying to be defensive. They're trying to control the game with the ball. That's why when I said earlier that their buildup is slow because they're trying to control the game by having the ball. They can't just throw numbers forward because they'll get killed on the counter, and they don't really have a lot of guys to throw forward. So he's trying to build with what he's got to work with. Look, they 1-0, it's not bad. They had some chances after conceding the one. They had a couple of decent chances in the match. Okay. LA had a ton. LA's a better team. They should have. Kalina was good as a goalkeeper. They weathered the storm like the middle third of the first half. Charlotte was under siege. Like you watch the highlights of that one, the 7-minute highlight package. I think 5 of them are from minutes like 18 to 25, where it feels like LA is just shot.
Kalina's going like this, going from side to side, and yeah,
he's dancing.
Yeah, it turned into Shaolin soccer for a minute.
Yeah,
it did.
Well,
and
he was all over the place.
But they got it done, and then it's a golazo that they lose on. They could have gotten out of there with a scoreless draw, but they didn't look all that threatening in the attack. Honestly, I could care less if Charlotte scores a goal against Atlanta. I want 3 points. I don't care. If it's 2-1, all right. Depends on how it goes. I might sweat it a little bit.
3-2,
3-1,
4-3, whatever. 4-2, whatever.
I don't want to give up 2 or 3 goals.
I'm with you. I just
3
just
points.
win.
I know. I know it is inconsequential in the grand scheme of things about Charlotte scoring their first goal and all that. I just am petty towards Charlotte because apparently that's the thing Charlotte wanted. So, hey, Charlotte, y'all wanted to be petty. We can be petty. I promise. Like Charlotte and Atlanta both have a long history of being petty towards each other when it comes to sports. So we can absolutely do that. But yes, 3 points will be the most important thing here.
Here's something else that I'm sure people will get in their feelings about. Per Fanatics, Charlotte broke the MLS record for in-venue retail sales. That's regular season and postseason. Obviously, the inaugural opener gear, jerseys, they sold a ton of merch. Broke the MLS record. It was Fanatics' second best game ever at a venue where it operates physical retail in any sport. Now, I don't know how many venues that is in
That's
NBA,
awesome.
NHL, NFL. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. This is a good thing for the league, and it'll be a lot of fun when they come in and Atlanta plays the way I hope they will, and they win the game. If that happens, it'll be a blast. But Charlotte's a good thing for the league, and Charlotte talked about it all off season. They haven't built their roster very well either, and that's on them. That's 100% on them. And Miguel Angel Ramirez is trying to use duct tape and paper clips and all of that to hold this thing together, and they've been more competent than I thought they would. Doesn't mean they've been good, but they've been respectable.
I will give them credit though that I feel like they play the guts though. Like I want to give Charlotte credit. Like
He's got them
what
believing
they're
in what he's
lacking
doing.
on. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like what they lack in the attacking side. Like he's got them believing they're going to play with guts. They're going to fight you for 90 minutes, and I respect the hell out of them for it.
100%.
There's a lot they got to fix on the attacking side, but I respect the hell out of them for buying in fully. That's not a question. This isn't like Charlotte might have a really bad season, y'all, but it's not going to be like Cincinnati being an abomination where the coach clearly wasn't like the coach clearly should not have been the guy to come with the team. Yeah. Like they will not be they will not be the same thing.
They will not be Cincinnati year one. They will not be Minnesota year one. I think Ramirez is too good of a coach for that to happen. I don't think they'll be good, but I don't think they will be a poorly coached team, as we've seen with some expansion teams in the league. They'll be very well coached. They just might not be good enough to get results.
Yeah, I think at the end of the year you won't see a lot of points in the points earned column, but they will be more. They're more competitive than we've seen with those other two sides. They should be.
Yeah, they have been. They've been competitive, more competitive than I expected them to be. Anything else pressing we need to get from the Twitch pitch, or can it wait till tomorrow?
It can wait till tomorrow.
Okay, that's going to do it for us. We're going to give Nick Alifi one more week on Soccer Over There to get back into the flow of things. I think he's still missing his homeland a little bit. He's probably still celebrating Milan winning yesterday as well. So next week, Soccer Over There will return. Tomorrow, we'll be back at 9:05 with Dylan Butler joining us at 9:30. Trying to think of anything else this week. We've got Johnson of Gainesville hosting Dalton on Friday and some high school action, which will be very, very good. That'll be on the app. Just the boys game. It's just a boys match. The girls are not playing. I think Johnson's playing somebody else on the girls' side away.
Yeah, it's on Saturday, yes.
Yeah, it's not going to be Friday where we're there. We're just doing the boys game. So be ready for that. That'll be fun. We are live in Kennesaw, Burnt Hickory. Thursday night, 6:30 is when the show will start. So join us at Dry County. Sorry, I'm mixing up my breweries. Dry County in Kennesaw on Thursday. 6:30 is when the show will go live. You can watch on Twitch, but we hope to see you there Thursday night. We'll get ready for the Charlotte match. And we'll start talking about that after all of the overreactions from today. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the interaction. Sorry if I was a little too verbose at times and we didn't get as many, but I think we covered everything. If we didn't, and you're listening to this later and there's something that you wanted us to talk about, then let us know. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. You can send us an email, soccerdownhere@gmail.com, and we will talk about it tomorrow around our conversation with Dylan. We'll look at the rest of the league with Dylan as well. A lot of other games we didn't really get into that we'll talk about tomorrow. So y'all have a good rest of the day. We will see you on Tuesday. Much platio.
Much platio.
Much platio.